19th, 2021. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to have a swearing-in ceremony here of our mayor for the day, Nikos.
Please stand. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Nikos Komopoulos,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of Illinois,
of the State of Illinois,
and that I will
faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of mayor for the day
of mayor for the day
according
according
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
All right, nice job, Nikos. I like it.
Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Belzak,
Here.
Clistic,
Here.
Gustafson, Kenny,
Here.
Shower,
Here.
Sullivan,
Here.
Vaughn,
Here.
6 present and 1 absent.
We have a quorum. Does anyone in the audience have anything they would like to say to the council that is not on the agenda?
I didn't see the agenda, so I plead ignorance. Let me just say this before I get started. If on the agenda, if we're going to be talking about the flooding conditions, then I'll wait for that, so I don't tie up anything else to begin
Okay.
with.
That's fine.
Acceptable to everybody? Very good.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the June 21st meeting?
Okay. Gotta look for people.
Moved by Alderperson Kenny, seconded by Alderperson Sullivan. If none, the roll. The minutes have been approved.
No, not yet.
I like the way he works, though.
Hey, you're keeping it moving fast, Nikos. I like it. I like it a lot.
Questions or comments? If none, the roll.
Kenny,
Aye.
Sullivan,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Abstain.
Shower,
Aye.
Belzak,
Aye.
Clistic.
Abstain.
I have 4 ayes, 2 abstentions, and 1 absent.
Do any of the alderpersons have communications for the council?
I do.
Alderman Kenny?
Thank you, Mayor Ganapoulos. I have communication from Marie Ciaglia on Clare Court regarding the development of Oak Trace behind the Darien Club property. They're about to start working on stage 2, and there's some things that she doesn't think are, right, but there's not much we can do with it. I also have got a communication here shortly from Bonnie Casera in Norman Courts, addressed to myself and Dan Gombach. She's saying she's not sure if it's the city or the county, but thanks for getting 75th Street paved between Williams and Norman Drive. She said it was down to dirt in places. Can't believe the original work didn't last more than 5 years, but thanks again from the Norman Court community. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Alderman Clistic?
Oh, thank you. I have 3 pieces of communication, so eventually. First order of communication was from my neighbor from the 7,000 block of Sawyer. He is a big Bueno Beef fan, and he received this email from Bueno Beef that I would like to share with everybody that I think is representative of city staff, and so I just want to take a second to read this. Dear Darien community, we'd like to take this time to thank the city of Darien, its officials, in making our remodel and grand opening a success. Bueno and Rainbow Cone on cast extends a special thank you to Mayor Joseph Marquez, Jordan Yankee, Mr. Dan Gombach, and Mary Belmonte. These individuals turned a long process into a breeze. From village hearings to plan and review and construction, the city was top-notch. Thank you again for the warm welcome and feedback to the community from the Bueno Beef family. Second order communication, a few of my daughter's parents reached out and a little concerned about the gun trading shop, kidney corner from the middle school, Lace. So I didn't realize there was one there. So some residents brought that to my attention. I told them I don't think there's anything we can do, and I'm pretty sure that meets all of code. But a few parents brought that to my attention. And then lastly, with regards to the last floods, the 8,000 block of Sawyer, I got communication from quite a few residents. And Mr. Steve Leopoldo, he sent me a couple pictures of residents out there working during the flood. It's scary for a lot of people whose homes are really that close. My concern is that residents are out there doing some of that work. I know we have a plan that we flood the streets when we get a lot of rain, but unfortunately the amount of rain that we have is quite significant. And obviously, as you can tell, at max capacity for a storm sewer. So Burke Engineering is here to discuss potential options that we could do, may potentially move forward, some studies, some planning that we could do to help address that. And that is all I have.
Alderperson Sullivan.
Sullivan. Thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple communications. I did receive an email from Lou and Carol Mallers in the Pinehurst area, and they asked if I would please read it at tonight's meeting. On Sunday, June 20th, no one could have imagined that a tornado would come through the city of Darien and surrounding suburbs. It looked like a war zone, but within an hour, Darien Public Works came by and pushed all the trees off streets and blocked driveways to clear in case of further emergencies. The following days brought not only Darien Public Works, but also volunteers from Darien Lions Club, the Darien Home Depot, and volunteers from other suburbs and other tree service companies. Within the following days, so much incredible work was done. We cannot thank everyone enough for their great work. It was a terrible time, but we are grateful that no one was injured in Darien. Thank you does not seem to be enough to say to everyone that helped during this time. In good times and in bad times, Darien is a nice place to live. So thank you, Lou and Carol. I know Lou's here tonight. Got a similar message from another Pinehurst resident, Lori Wyant, and the whole Wyant family was so appreciative. Just like Lou mentioned, many driveways, in fact, pretty much all the driveways in the Pinehurst area were blocked, and Darien Municipal Services crews were there, as soon as, the tornado was gone, pretty much, overnight clearing things and made tremendous progress, and they are extremely grateful too. And then I know there's several members in the audience tonight from the Carriage Greens subdivision, most especially the blocks of Laurel, Glenier, and Carriage Greens Drive, who have concerns about stormwater and flooding, and they're here tonight to hear Christopher Burke, and just want some follow-up after the fact as well.
If I could add something to what Alderwoman Sullivan said. She mentioned how we had people from other communities come out. I wanted to note that we had public works crews from Addis, Illinois, Bloomingdale, Illinois, Carroll Stream, Illinois, Lombard, Illinois, Lisle, Illinois, Westmont, Illinois, the Illinois Tollway Authority, and others who were all out here with their workers and with equipment to help us. So we've thanked them. I've sent a letter to all of them thanking them very much. And in my response to that, a lot of their mayors have called me to tell me that this is what we do for one another, and Darien will be out there for them as well. And our crews actually went into the Bruce Lake area, and we assisted the people in the Bruce Lake area as well. So the mutual aid was wonderful. It was a terrible thing that we experienced. It did look like a war zone, Lou. It really did. I was out there at 5:30 in the morning, and I couldn't believe what I saw. And within a week, that whole area just looked so different. And a lot of that due to our public works, but also with help and assistance. And everybody that we met, Mr. Van and I met that morning, was upbeat. People were talking, and they were happy to talk. They weren't sitting there bemoaning their fate. They were all out there working and moving branches, and large tree limbs to the front of their property. And again, kudos to our public works guys, but also kudos to the people out there in the Pinehurst and the Sawmill Creek area for what they did to help themselves. Darien really came together that day, and I'm most proud of the people, and I'm most proud of the public works workers. Anything else?
Alderperson Vaughan.
Vaughn?
That's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you, Mayor. I have one communication from Steve Kodwicka from the 400 block of 71st Street. They've had issues with flooding during big rainstorms. They're getting 4 feet to 5 feet of water up to their garages, and so they wanted me to address that tonight. I know we have the engineers here tonight to address that, so I just wanted to mention that. And that is all. Thank you.
Ask if there's anybody else.
Anybody else? Alderperson Sullivan.
Thank you. Thank you. I know I've been in communication with Chief Thomas, but there's been, last summer we had concerns, and Dan also shared the study that was done last summer with traffic and speeding in the Lake Ridge, Royal Swan, Carlisle Court, Kentwood Drive, like the Carriageway West community. So, we're trying to get a little bit more details on what's the current issue in terms of, people speeding. And there's no sidewalks in that area. That was the choice of the developer in the subdivision. And so just people on the streets and just, trying to get people to slow down and, be a little bit more safe. A lot of young families over there now, too. So I thank Chief for helping us, try to further explore that and get word back to the residents on what's going to be done.
Anybody else?
Okay, this next part is mine, the mayor's report. Tonight, we've invited Dr. Christopher Burke to join us along with Dan Lynch. Dr. Burke is the CEO of Rosemont-based Christopher B. Burke Engineering, and Daniel Lynch is the head municipal engineering department. He's our staff contact. Christopher Burke Engineering specializes in the study, design, and construction of complex stormwater projects and are proud of the reputation they have built as specialists in the field. Over a 38-year career, Dr. Burke has established himself as a leader in the engineering profession, academia, and community involvement. In electing him to the class of 2021, the NAE recognized Dr. Burke's leadership in executing complex water resources projects and service to the engineering community. After the significant storms of June 26, our staff contacted Christopher Burke and requested they attend our meeting tonight. Dr. Burke will discuss stormwater ordinances, general stormwater management practices, and Darien's specific stormwater efforts. To give a brief introduction to Dr. Burke, Mr. Gombeck would like to address the group. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Burke, Mr. Lynch, thank you for coming out this evening. First of all, Dr. Burke, I probably met 38 years ago back in another municipality where there was really severe flooding and businesses were closed, and both of us back then were sloshing water. And I think Dan Lynch came into that situation. Dan Lynch has been a municipal engineer for 38 years, I believe it is. With that said, Dan Lynch, based on what Dan Lynch does for us, is when plans come in for, let's call it brand new subdivisions, Dan Lynch reviews them from a perspective of detention calculations, what they call best management practices, and just general drainage in the area. I can't tell you over the years how many times Dan Lynch and myself have been out on storm events, sometimes during and sometimes after, and, putting collaborative message or correspondence together to be able to come up with solutions where solutions can be had and made. And in some cases, the benefit is now worth the cost on larger projects. But again, I'd like to introduce Dr. Burke and Dan Lynch. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here to see the aldermen and see old friends like Dan and Brian, who we've had the opportunity to work with over all these years. So what I'm going to do is go through some slides, go through some background, and describe for you the types of flooding to distinguish the types of flooding that occur in the urban area. because the solution for each is very different. And so quantifying where the flooding source is a very important thing. So I'm going to go through some of the background of the different things. And one of the things that I will promise you, this will be relatively brief. As Mayor suggested, I'm a professor at the University of Illinois at Chicago, where I've taught for the last 20 years. My lectures are usually 2.5 hours every Wednesday. I'm not going to even come close to that. We'll be much briefer. One of the things that we experience throughout the Chicagoland area, especially the Midwest, is because we're very flat in topography. We have a lot of street flooding. This is a very inconvenient issue for the residents. It can impact traffic and disruption to traffic on major arterials and can be a problem to the motorist. We've all been through this. We've all seen it. I've got many pictures of major waterways, interstates, and tollways underwater over the years. So this is one of the types of flooding that occurs, and this may not be a hazard to the surrounding properties, but is due to a sag point, which is a low point in the street where water pools. I mean, water flows downhill, and it flows to the low points. And modern storm sewer design, the types of things that are included in ordinances, require that you have an overland flow route. So the water can all flow downhill to a sag, but it needs to flow in between homes and swales and ditches to a detention pond. So many of you know that there are older parts of town that have no detention storage facilities, because really in the 70s and 80s is when people started incorporating detention ponds. And what those are parking lots for water. Rather than having the water sit on the streets, sit in homes, it sits there, the flows are attenuated, reduced, and they flow downstream. So we also have in town here floodplain areas, and we have overflow areas due to the different types of ditches and other things that overflow. So these are things that we see throughout the region, as I described: sag points, floodplains, overland flow routes, as well as the overflows from the creek and ditches. Now, to many of the residents, I'm sure it really doesn't make a difference where the water's coming from. It's problematic. This, fortunately, is not in town. The top picture is a picture where the home, a brick home, is surrounded by water, completely surrounded by water, and water's finding its way into the home a variety of ways. It's finding the connection at the joints of the foundation. It's finding its way, you'll see in a couple seconds, water flowing in through window wells. The picture down below is a picture of a street which is receiving modest amounts of water, and it stays there for a few hours and then goes down. I will say it gets exacerbated, the flooding, when people try to go to their homes, drive down the street, and cause wakes. And that is something I've heard hundreds of times described at various public hearings. So one of the problems, and this does not happen in town. So we have surface flooding that comes around the houses, first floor flooding, window wells. We also have seepage. Seepage is the water coming in at the joint. We have foundations and we have foundation walls. And there's a cold joint in between the concrete, and over the years it has cracked, and that is a seepage. That's what we refer to as seepage. Also, sump pumps. We all live in an area where we rely on sump pumps. And the sump pumps the purpose of the sump pump is to bring down the groundwater so it doesn't infiltrate, and also to reduce the loading of groundwater on the foundation, because we will have cracking if we don't have it. We have a lot of situations, and many of us have had these situations, where a burnout of a sump pump is either overloaded or they get old, like all of us. Power failure, when the power goes out, if you don't have the backup with the battery, those are situations. And often, I'm going to show some pictures where the sump pumps can't keep up with the flow. This is I want to distinguish that type from sanitary sewer backup. Sanitary sewer backup is caused when clear water that doesn't need to get treated at a wastewater treatment plant is introduced into the sanitary sewer. I'll repeat that 100 times. Clear water does not have a place in the sanitary sewer. And we, as engineers, do a lot of work to try to eliminate those clear water sources. They're from infiltration and inflow. And finally, we have yard backup, which is a problem. And most cases, if you're not near a creek or river, riverine we call it, it's not as significant. This is significant, and this is water pouring in from window wells because the houses have been surrounded by water. And this is something, so there are a number of techniques we use for addressing those, and we'll discuss those in a second. Basement seepage. As I said, this is a picture that shows all the different problems that can occur. And these are distinctive. You can be miles away from a creek, miles away from a river or lake, and still have seepage coming up through the floor, through the cracks in the walls, through a variety of sources. And this is, and look, I am not diminishing it. Anybody that's had it, and many of us have, it's problematic, it's chronic, and it has a completely different solutions than some of the other problems. So this is often can be due to subsidence. So let me just say one thing while we got this picture up. Everybody, when we had our home constructed, if we had a basement, the contractor went outside to dig the foundation. The foundation extends outside of the foundation wall. Outside of the foundation wall is our foundation itself. So there's overdig. That overdig is backfilled by the contractor, and that area subsides over time. And that is where all the water can infiltrate that finds its way through our drain tiles and our sump pumps. And it's really important, and it's also important, as I'll show you in the next slide, to make sure that water is not introduced. So this is a picture of a property within the city. And this is a downspout that is, and it's very nicely landscaped property, but that downspout needs to be extended away from the house. And the reason is all that water that's coming off of the roof is then going down into the foundation drain, finds its way into the sump pump, and then it's pumped up again. So number one, it's not green because you're taking water that could have easily taken advantage of gravity and discharged away from the house. So we always recommend the homeowners try to address these things, minimize the amount of water that is introduced into the basement and can find its way during a sump pump failure into the house. So this is a little simulation, and it's brown water for a reason. And this is a sanitary sewer backup. And this happens when our clear water is introduced into the sanitary sewer. This is coming up from backup. This is a problem with the sanitary sewer having too much clear water, no place to go, and finding its way. Everybody has a floor drain in their basement. You're thinking that's connected to your sump pump. It's connected to your sanitary sewer by ordinance, by laws related to sanitation. So this is something we see quite a bit. This is a little bit more detailed, and this shows you the interaction. The storm sewers in the street are only designed to take the storm water from the street and the immediate surrounding areas. The sanitary sewer is only designed for the sanitary sewer waste. Then we have, and that's if we have an ejector. Many of the residents have ejector pumps. They got two pumps in the basement. One is to handle sewage. It's the one with the closed lid. The other one is a sump pump designed to take the clear water. And that clear water is to be discharged away from the house, or in some cases connected into a storm sewer, never the sanitary sewer. This is an ideal situation. You can see that the downspouts are not going down into the basement. They're going out on using gravity to keep them away from the house, not reintroduced into the sanitary, never in the sanitary sewer, into the sump pump. Our sump pumps have limited capacity, just like all the types of things. So So that's a general arrangement and alignment of our sewer systems. We have a lot of these. Every community that I've ever lived in or worked in over the last 40 some odd years has these types of problems. And these are persistent. And it's easy for me to say that they're not an issue, but they are an issue for the residents in the area. Kills grass, but they normally are secondary, as I say in this PowerPoint importance. So everybody has heard these types of things, that we'll dig these ponds deeper. Well, you can't, these ponds that we have in the area have finite capacity. Anything below the pipe that goes out, the lower part of that, is not efficient storage or effective storage. Often we're asked in these meetings, go send that water somewhere else. Well, that just means that you can get a different audience in the room, and in the ordinances that have been existing for the last 3 decades prohibit that. Often there is an evil gatekeeper. There is a person that causes it. One of our communities had a frank discussion with some of the property owners that were saying someone closed the gate. And the person who's the mayor said, I'm the mayor of the community. Why would I let anybody close any gate at any time to hurt my residents? And it's true. So there are no evil gates. We can't send the water to a different watershed. People that I've heard 2 things. One thing all the time. I've never saw it so bad. I've got it on tape going back 40 years from residents. I've never seen the flooding so bad. And of course, many of people move in and out of a community. People don't remember, and so we always hear that. And everybody wants to attribute the problem to a specific cause. And now it gets very cloudy, as we have seen impacts of climate change and what that is doing. Often there are no other agencies or other groups that have available funds or at the time that these problems need to get addressed. So one of the things that we've done, and I've given these tips to people, one time I gave it, and I gave the handouts to the reporter, I gave everything to the reporter, and about 6 months later I saw this reporter at a different community. I'm not thinking that she covered that community. She had taken those tips that I gave, the little diagrams to disconnect your sump pumps, but she had not implemented them, and agreed that even though she had published and wrote lots of articles, she had not incorporated. So we've used these recommendations, backup power, always make sure that the gutters are clean, make sure that you do not block those runoff swales in the backyard, make sure that you never have a connection to the sanitary sewer, make sure that your sump pump, there's a bottom thing on the sump pump called an impeller. Those do not last forever. They need to be replaced, and make sure that you have, to the extent possible, backup power. We've seen many times, many places where backup power was a result of the impact. Always, as I said, extend. These are the tips for the homeowners now. Get the downspouts as far away from the foundation so you're not pumping the water that otherwise would drain away. Make sure that the cracks, and there's lots of companies that will do this, are sealed up. Raise the elevation of the window wells if possible, and I've seen this done many, many times successfully, where the window well, the top of the window well is raised so the water can pond around the house but not enter through the window well. Glass blocks are a very effective mechanism, and we've seen communities put in hundreds of those to stop the water from infiltrating into the lower level. Put in a new tile system to eliminate the hydrostatic pressure around the foundation. What can the city do? Obviously, and you've heard some of the residents address the job that the city staff does in maintaining the drainage infrastructure, the ditches. So the sewer system, the whole storm sewer collection system, starts with water flowing downhill to the gutter. That gutter is not for show. It is actually a channel that takes water to grates. The grates are the portal for water entering the storm sewer system. The storm sewer hopefully is always connected to a bigger storm sewer that eventually gets into a ditch or a waterway. Everything is relied upon in the storm water system primarily on pump, or primarily on gravity, not pumps. That distinguishes it from the sanitary sewer, which often has pumping to bring it up to a higher elevation. So we have a series of ditches and storm sewers that are all connected. I know that the city staff does a great job in the rapid response. And of course, there are capital improvement projects. Many communities look at a cost-benefit analysis, looking at the scope of the problem and the associated costs. These are the types of things that we see in a lot of towns where on the right-hand side is an overland flow route. So the water flows, when it gets too high in the streets, flows in an emergency way, it's an emergency overland flow route, to another downhill area safely. We find in one community, a relatively newer community, had 200 some odd situations where the overland flow routes were blocked. They were things, and not by evil-minded people. They blocked through a series of fences or through a series of landscaping walls, blocked the overland flow out. So water flows downhill, and it will flow downhill, and if it can't get through these routes, it starts going into houses. So those are some of the types of things that we have seen. We've seen channel improvements that have been incorporated to increase the capacity of the channel. We have also conveyed water. We've used some open space to create storage where water is temporarily parked. We've also looked at underground storage, which is a very expensive route, but sometimes you see that being used. These are vaults that where the water is temporarily stored underground in these structural components, and this is an example of some recently constructed storage, and this is 10 acre-feet. We use storage volume as an acre-foot. So if you hear these in various stories, various presentations, an acre-foot is about a football field, flat football field, 1 foot deep. So you can see, you can imagine the volume of storage that's provided, and the scale of the problem is measured in 10 acre-feet. If I started saying million gallons, it would be, I can't grab a hold of millions of gallons, and there are millions of bottles of water, things like that. So we always in engineering refer to things in a volume of acre-feet so we can understand. So the Elmer-Chicago Stone Quarry, which is a gigantic reservoir, is on the order of 10,000 acre-feet, just to give you an idea. In many of these urban areas, we have relatively tight work spaces to fit them, so you see these types of things. So we have storm sewers that convey the water to an outlet and or detention pond in town. Those were always designed with the best available information at the time that the ordinances mandated. So it's always based on the drainage area, the type of land use, and a risk factor incorporated into the rainfall. And I'll complete this by saying, as we get older, the rainfall data we learn more and more about. We collect a lot of rainfall. When the European settlers came to this country, they did not find rainfall gauges all around, nor do they put rainfall gauges. And so we're relying on about 100 years of data to try to extrapolate and determine what risk is acceptable for our urban infrastructure, especially stormwater. So at that point, I'll turn it over to any questions that you may have on this abbreviated PowerPoint.
Dr. Burke,
Yes.
you mentioned that stormwater should not be going into sanitary systems. What about people who connect their sump pump discharge into the sanitary system? What happens to that? Does that cause the sanitary backup, or does that cause additional flooding?
Mayor, it will probably not cause flooding for that individual, but anybody at the low part of the street is feeling the impact associated with that clear water. In my classes, I always do a simple summary. A 8-inch sanitary sewer pipe can take the sanitary waste for a big subdivision, Mayor. It can only take the clear water from about 4 sump pumps. So all you have to do in a big subdivision is have 4, 5, 6 people providing clear water in there. You're going to fill up the sanitary sewer and begin to cause flooding of the other neighbors that are in the lower part of the subdivision.
A lot of Darien, many subdivisions within Darien were built before the stormwater ordinance, and they weren't built with a detention area within that neighborhood. I've been on the council 24 years, and we built the Dale Basin, we built the Crust Basin, which are places, depositories for water. But there are subdivisions in the city that were not built with detention. And what I want residents to understand is that because of that, the streets become the area where the water is detained until the sewers can deal with the water. Could you expound on that a bit?
Well, you described what's going on very well. Before the 70s or 80s, depending on when some ordinances were enacted, all the storm water was sent downstream through storm sewers, downhill into the receiving waterway. We realized that that was not the best thing to do. Modern stormwater management required detention ponds. It was about 1972 in Cook County when the Water Reclamation District started. In DuPage, it was in the early 80s. And so since before that, the water just is going to get in a storm sewer. If it can't get in through the inlet into the storm sewer, when that becomes filled, it starts backing up in the streets and ponding because there is no other place for it to go.
Does anybody have any questions for that? Mr. Clista?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for coming. I think the presentation was great. I think most of us know a lot of the stuff you said. I think most of the residents here are looking for solutions. And then, as an engineer, I did a little research as well. So I reached out, for example, to the city of Westmont. They use some underground storage, infiltration, and trench, which I was expecting to hear from you. I reached out to some friends in Michigan, some things they do in their stormwater to address low points, as you mentioned, where it sits there in pools. I know you're sort of saying like, well, it happens what it happens, but I think residents sort of want solutions and not just what's obvious. So things that can be done. You can put a pump down there, just like you mentioned your sump pump. You can put pumps in stormwater drains to get that water flowing, right? That's a potential there too. So I think if you could expunge a little bit on solutions, I can look at the audience and they're like, okay, we know this floods, we know this happens, but we want to see what type of solutions. And I think maybe for council, we want to look at potentially doing a study at certain areas of town that potentially need it and what those solutions would be.
Certainly. For pumping, let's just stop it. We've done the probably the largest pumping station in all of DuPage County on Westwood Creek off of 290 in Addison. That's a roughly 500 cubic feet per second, if I remember. That's not what you need here for these smaller areas. Recreation of overland flow routes eliminates the need for the pumping. Some cases there are situations where pumps are required, where you have a low-lying area and you have to size it. Not only for, it's often very difficult to size the pump for the peak flow rate. Often that's the reason why I said we put in stormwater management facilities, either underground or in parks, where we've done several of those throughout Elmhurst in the last 4 years. So there's probably not a stormwater management technique that we have not incorporated in the last 5 years throughout DuPage County or the surrounding counties. I will also tell you some of the green infrastructure may be a solution for chronic ponding of water that's not threatening the homes, but other more larger scale projects are often required where there's damage to the home, damage to the structure. So we've seen these implemented. One of the things, though, I've seen a lot of times people are seeing the sewage coming up from their basement and attributing it to the stormwater. It is stormwater, but it's clear water that's being artificially introduced into that sanitary sewer. And I think the discussion has to be bifurcated to enable us to have that, discussion. Now, some residents, I've been in meetings where people are saying, elbowing their husband or wife, saying that's what we have. That's the problem that is the chronic problem. And I would bet when I go to a room like this, 50% of the people have illegal connections to the sanitary sewer.
They have or they have not?
Brian?
I think like pictures like this with residents in the middle of the street trying to fix it, adds to their frustration when it repeats a couple times over. So I think ultimately we have to look forward for a study and look at certain areas. I think, for most of the residents, it's certain areas that is coming down from north part of town to the southern part, starting to overflowing, and potentially looking at, when we get those once in a 100-year storms to once a year, and what are our options to move that water? This doesn't happen every time it rains. This happens in 2 inches of water per hour or whatever the case may be. And so I think, potentially if council supports looking at doing studies at those areas, Marion Hills, I think you mentioned is one. That would
Carriage Greens.
Carriage Greens. That's one. We put a lot of money into a golf course there, right? So the last thing I guess we want to do is flood a golf course and miss out on golf time, right? So
Hey, Tom, what is that picture referring to? Which one is that?
this is on Farmingdale,
Farmingdale?
Yeah.
Where at? Farmingdale and what?
8,000 block of Farmingdale. So right, you have a park on one side, and so this comes from north of town, so north of my block, and comes south, and then
So
floods in that area.
79th Street, 8,000
Yeah.
block. And Dr. Burke, with all due respect, maybe you could address, the area he's referring to is a floodplain, if not a floodway. Dan and Lynn, I'm not sure which one it is specifically, but there's, streets were built, whereas today's standards would be a lot different. So in many cases, we have areas, Lakeview, for example, 79th Street in Farmingdale, where water is stored there, and it is a part of a floodway. If you could expound on that, please.
Sure. And that's the reason why I try to distinguish the different types of flooding, because overbank flooding has a completely different source. It may be several miles upstream. There's nothing we can do to stop that water, just like after it gets into that waterway and goes downstream, they're not going to be able to stop the Darien water, if that makes sense. So those issues, there's regulations pertaining to what you can do within the floodway and floodplain. So those are legacy problems that are having a different types of solution that may require people that are upstream and perhaps the county. So I agree with that. It doesn't make a difference to me as a homeowner or resident where the water comes from, but it's from an engineer. It's important for me to identify the source of the problem. I have empathy for all of them. I mean, whether or not you're having sewer backup because someone in my situation last week, flushed some stuff down the toilet that they shouldn't, is irrelevant. It's still a problem, and it's still something that needs to be addressed. And certainly I have great empathy over the years. I've visited 1,000 homes over the years and seen firsthand the damage that occurs, the smell of mold as it starts getting into the home. So I have a great deal of empathy. The solutions vary based on the type of problem that exists.
Alderman Vaughn.
I have a quick. This might be for Dan and Brian. Is there any liability that comes to the city if a property gets damaged because of the water flow that they're not in control of from the flooding? Are we responsible?
If we were to know about it and did nothing about it, so again, by admission, yes. If it was an act of God and we first found out, the answer is no. But something chronic, and Dr. Burke can probably expound on that as well.
Well, let me add, Dan, sometimes a municipality will take an action which will cause a specific problem. And there might be liability issues there, but I think generally that's really a broad question. And I'm sure you've probably been an expert witness, Chris, in a number of these.
Yeah.
But, if you did something specific, you might have some liability. But in general, I have not seen towns have liability, but Chris, if you have.
Not, as you're right, I've been involved with as an expert witness. And there's, the city has a certain amount of immunity, and then, of course, there's existing conditions that is part of a legacy infrastructure that exists here and throughout the Chicagoland region.
I'd like to bring up an example of something that took place a number of years ago, early in my term. We had several homes over on Elm, which runs along Hinsdale South High School, at the back of Hinsdale South High School. And those homes were flooding every time we had a significant rain. I think we went in agreement with the county and that we purchased the property. Those homes were torn down and that was set up as a water retention area. What people need to understand is to go into neighborhoods that were built 20, 30 years ago and create a water retention area costs millions of dollars. I don't think people realize that. And for some of these people, for some of these areas, that's probably what you would need to do. And I doubt if anybody says, well, I'll give up my home so that you can build a water retention area. That's not going to happen. I mean, am I off base in saying that? I mean, it does cost very much to do that.
Most projects, Mayor, are over $1 million in price tag, and I've not heard anybody that volunteers their property. We have seen that many communities have to resort to using public fields and baseball fields, parks, and the like to provide storage.
Brian?
Mayor, I think probably a question, the first question is, really what's acceptable to the city, or what is a problem? Because I think the picture that Alderman Klistic showed after this last rain would be almost any street, USA. You could pick a town throughout DuPage County and they would have had the same things. So I guess the question is, at some point, does the council want to spend these millions of dollars to get water out of a street that's holding water? Back to what Mayor Marquez said, back in the day when Marion Hills was done, there were homes that were getting overland flooding, and the streets and our system was not conveying water, and it was getting in the homes. Pictures like Alderman Klistic showed, again, does that necessitate doing something in terms of detention, retention, when the water is holding the street, and that's what it was designed to do? And it's really, that's not a question for the engineer, that's a question for the city council ultimately. And I think most, or any of the aldermen that got calls that, or have pictures, that's what it was. And I saw some posting on social media saying, oh, our infrastructure, and it's only gonna get worse. And that's not actually correct either, because the way our infrastructure works and the way that the city council really has been funding maintenance projects, it doesn't get worse every year. If you would have said that in the early 80s when new subdivisions were being built without detention, I would have agreed with that. But our infrastructure is not getting bad with age, because we are maintaining it. So again, the question is, the picture that Alderman Klistic shows, what level is acceptable for a short period of time, pretty infrequently. And I've been the subject personally of sewer backup, home flooding, lightning strike, and a fire. So I've had a lot of the Mother Nature things I've had to deal with. But a certain amount of water in the street, it really is an acceptable way to do this without spending millions. And Chris used the dollar amount of $1 million a project. That probably doesn't include land acquisition if you have to buy homes, because you're going to put it in a low spot. So somewhere you got to find a low spot, like in Marion Hills. So again, and again, I sympathize with residents, but I think a lot of these things aren't solved by the city projects and doing detention basins, because we don't have homes that are directly flooding overland.
The other thing that I would like to add is, when I was alderman in Ward 5, I got a call from one of my residents on Lake Ridge Drive, and he said that the water is building up on our street and it's freezing over to where, when Lake Ridge hits Royal Swan, it's like an ice skating pond, because it would freeze up during the winter. Well, we went out there and we addressed that by putting all new inlets along Lake Ridge Drive as well as Royal Swan, and now that problem doesn't exist. So from a maintenance standpoint, when we have these things pointed out to us where we see where the fault lies, the city has taken care of that through putting in new inlets. And the other thing I want to mention is, I checked with our director of, not Mr. Gombeck, right below him is Mr. Throm. And he said the week before that storm, they were anticipating that storm. And the week before that storm, they had a summer employee go around and clean out every one of the grates throughout the entire city. You know, we ask people to do that. We ask residents to be aware of the fact that grates fill up with leaves and other debris. But this person went out and did that. So we were prepared for that. So people who say, well, the city, didn't maintain it, or the city, I had to go clean the grate out, that's not true. Those grates were all cleaned out before that. I'm not mentioning it for Mr. Burke, I'm mentioning that for the audience.
Chris, I'm sorry, a follow-up. When I think most of the rain ended up draining, I think probably within the hour after the rain stopped. And by comparison, Chris, can you tell us about communities? Because I know there's some along Salt Creek and other areas. If you flood, that water's going to be in your home and in your streets for 5 days, maybe. You know, as compared to what Darien experiences for an hour during the heavy storms. I think LaGrange might have got hit, and some of these other places, and the water's there maybe a week it could stay, right?
So as an example, some of the communities that are on the Des Plaines River. Des Plaines River starts in Wisconsin. So the water comes down, and it's a gigantic watershed, and it stays up there for days. Streets are closed. River Road is chronic area. So that's an example. Depending on the drainage area, which is the governing factor. The larger the area, the bigger the impact if you're at the low spot receiving it. And so, yes, you can have days where water is standing in communities and having a significant impact. Fortunately, we have some floodplains in the city, but we have the areas that have smaller drainage areas where the water tries to get out, can't get into the inlets, can't get through the storm sewer system, and collects in the street. There was a period of time prior to the ordinances that I mentioned earlier where some designers thought that it would be good to allow the water to flood on the street. So there's various places in this immediate region where it was intentionally placed. Stormwater storage was intentionally placed in the street.
One question I just want to quickly bring up. Mr. Van mentioned about the waste detention ponds. Yes, those are expensive, and I think we're going with a big sledgehammer for a solution. Here's the library. They put permeable brick concrete so all this water doesn't go flowing in, right? We have huge Jewel parking lot, huge Jewel roof. We paid for the parking lot for Chuck's, right? We could have put in permeable pavers there, right? So you don't need to spend $1 million. You can look at the biggest, guys that throw the most water down the street, the Jewel parking lot, right? And be able to slow it down there. But passing an ordinance that says next time you change your parking lot, make it permeable concrete. That's what Westmont does. So you don't need to do a big retention pond. We need a study to understand what areas need to be addressed and spend a few bucks here, but not $1 million for a big waste detention pan.
But that is one area, and I know, Dan, you probably know more about it locally, that the parking lot's detention basin.
And
so that water is being held there. If you were to do some other kind of parking lot, you might change the design, but the way it is now, if you get excess water, that water ponds in the parking lot. So it's not flooding anybody going downstream.
That's
Because
exactly,
that is being held in that parking lot until the storm sewer is relieved and it could take it.
Well, the Jewel parking lot was built for the purpose of retaining
That is
water.
correct. That's number one.
Detaining.
Number two, with permeable pavers and or driveways, they even have permeable concrete today. And an example of that was put in was up at the Euclid Foundation up on Regency Drive and Cass Avenue, if you recall. They used that. Now the problem or concern with that is someone has to police it to make sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's being maintained. How do you maintain it? It has to be pressure washed for layman's terms, again. So there's ongoing maintenance with that, and I'm not sure if that's the best system out there. But storm trap systems like is being presented up there, those are very effective. Speedway, as a matter of fact, has a storm trap system where it collects the water, holds it for a period of time, and then it's released at a certain rate, cubic feet per second, back into the system downstream. But those are expensive.
I think that gets back to the question that for the council at some point is, what is
benefit?
What is the problem? Because Alderman Klistic brought up an example now, but that example, as you said, costs less, but it's not taking water out of the streets like the picture you showed. So I think the council not tonight, but has to have the discussion
Yeah, no,
about
absolutely.
what do you perceive the problem? Because water in the street, it's not a problem unless the city council really says, well, that's a problem, we need to do something about it. Because again, houses are not directly flooding from that, and there's, well, the aldermen know as well as we do what areas in their wards were holding water. But that's a discussion for the council, when you have more time to talk through that.
I mean, but people got to go to work, right? If a kid gets sick or something happens, you can't sit there wait an hour. I'm going to wait till it floods till I take my child to a hospital, right? Or something happens or go to work. So, I mean, I agree. Yes, you can wait an hour. It does flood. But if you're that one person that's stuck at the house and something happens, you're sort of stuck. So I think, like as you mentioned, it makes sense to, sit back and do a study and see what's the best way to look
Let's,
at it.
Alderman, we're going to have let the audience ask some question, but Alderman Vaughn?
Yeah, I was going to say we have a lot of folks in the audience that
Yeah,
probably have some concerns.
Dr. Burke, we're going to let the gentleman, when you come forward, sir, come to the microphone, so we know your name and your particular situation. Thank you.
My name is Payman Palavan, and I live in Carriageway in Laurel Avenue. My suggestion is that perhaps you guys need to improve your communication with the audience here instead of speaking between yourselves for a solution, and maybe express how long standing water sitting in the streets would be acceptable. And maybe we can reach a compromise where up to a certain length of water pooling or pond formation in the streets, it's cost effective not to do anything instead of talking about other plans. And maybe come to an agreement between yourselves and the neighbors here as to, okay, we're willing to accept so much water standing still for so long, and we know that, but we know that it won't be there forever, it won't do much damage, and we'll just live with that if it's possible. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the audience have a question? Yes, sir, come on forward. Whoever wants to go first.
Gene Rifka, living on 69th Street, Clarendon Hills Road. What happened to the old smoke test that was used to identify illegal sump pump hookups?
Mr. Gombe?
DuPage County does that periodically, and last time I think it was done in your area was about 4, maybe 5 years ago. So I know there was some situations that they did identify. And
I never received any communication.
well, I'd attest, then if you didn't receive communication from it, then we're on DuPage County Sanitary. The goal of that is to identify, and the way they identify it is by introducing smoke into there. If you don't get smoke into your home,
Right.
then obviously you don't have an illegal situation.
Right.
Residents will typically call and say, hey, I'm identified as smoke coming out of my drain, or whatever the case is, sump pump. In that case, DuPage County comes back and tells them we have an illegal hookup.
Okay.
Are you concerned, sir, about illegal hookups in your area? Is that what you're...
Yes, it was
okay.
acknowledged that subdivision that was built north of 69th Street and west of Richmond was, had a number of illegal hookups.
If you want to give me your name and number, I can have DuPage County follow up with you to what they identified. So let me grab that. Got a computer, but no paper.
We have another gentleman who wants to come forward. Sir, come on forward.
Gotta write that down. I'll get all the information to you.
Thank you.
If you have an email address, that'd be
My
great
name is
too.
Joe Mychek. Hopefully you can hear me through my mask. I live in the southwest corner of Darien. And my first question is for Dr. Burke. What causes the storm sewer system to upwell? The water comes up from the storm sewer system, okay? From what's supposed to be, the grates are supposed to collect it, the water's supposed to go down, the water's coming up, okay? And a related question is, you're talking about the streets acting as a detention pond in certain areas, okay? Isn't there a possibility that that can cause water subsidence? Because we've seen it in our area, okay? Water subsidence that causes collapse of the storm sewer system, okay? And other structures, streets, you know, areas, parkway areas by the curbs sinking down. So what can solve the problem of the, well, both of those problems, but mainly the storm sewer systems having that upwelling? To me, it seems like it's an overwhelmed system, but please expound on that. Thank you, Doctor.
A lot of people ask about that surcharging, the water flowing up from the sewer, and a lot of people say it went down like this. It's no different than our drain in our bathtub or our shower. We have two controls. One is too much water is trying to get in our drain, in our shower, in our bath, and sometimes we have a plugged drain or a full drain. So just like if you spend time, I'm guilty of this, watching that drain act and interact. One of the things that causes that surcharge is that you have air in the pipes, right? The deep tunnel, which is a giant pipe tunnel, has this gulping phenomenon. But mostly you're seeing on the streets, water trying to get in there. All the other inlets all around that storm sewer system are also trying to take water, and then the hydraulics just become a situation where it starts, there's phenomena called, hydraulic grade line. It starts poking its head above the inlets, and that's when you start seeing this surcharging. And then people always tell me it just went down like that. Well, kind of like our drain in our bathtub, all of a sudden it just starts draining because the hydraulics have been solved and the problems have been eliminated. I'm not familiar with these detention ponds by themselves causing water subsidence or ground subsidence. I'm not familiar with, I have not seen that. Our clay type soils, we have some subsidence, but it's not problematic. And I've not heard, and Dan can correct me, if we've had sewers collapse in this area. But we have a relatively stable soil. We don't see the interference or influence rather of detention storage facilities exfiltrating far enough away to cause ground subsidence.
That is correct, and with all due respect, if I can, I'm not sure what area you're referring to specifically.
I can give you the exact cross streets if you want them.
Sure.
Aylesworth Drive and Stewart.
Aylesworth Drive and Stewart.
Yeah, where Stewart intersects with Aylesworth Drive.
Okay. Again, that's an area that is subject to temporary street flooding, and that water goes to the west. There's a sag point right there also, and there's also some wetlands, floodplain back to the north of Darien as well as back into Woodridge. Correct.
What do you mean by the sag point? You're saying that
Low point.
That is the lowest point.
Yes.
Okay,
And the storm sewers the water all relieves itself between the two houses there. I don't have the addresses by memory, and goes into Woodridge.
okay.
There's no detention area specifically for that subdivision.
Well, from my observation, and I'm not a civil engineer, I can tell you that that is a sag point. Water is coming from the north down Aylesworth.
Dan, you got to get him to the microphone because they can't hear him at home.
We can't hear him.
Oh, I'm sorry. Typically, I talk
He needs
very
to
loud.
speak into the mic. Yeah.
I can tell you that it is true what you said, Dan. It is a sag point because water is coming from the north down Aylesworth Drive. It's coming from the east from Stewart, okay? Not much from the south because we have the cul-de-sac there, okay? Now, if I want to talk about the storm sewer system that is along our west property lines, okay? So it's kind of behind the residence there. And I
Right.
actually think I hate to say it, I actually think that is Woodridge's storm sewer system.
Part of it is Darien, the rear yards, which transfers back into a lake, a mid-block somewhere, and that is governed through Woodridge, and then downstream, only so much water could be pumped from that detention area. That's why it's a larger detention area. I believe there's two of them there, in which case they're regulated by how much water can be released downstream. At the same time, all those sag points will hold water. I've never seen a roadway there hold water for more than 30 minutes, 45 maximum.
Well, it has been longer than that, okay?
Okay.
And I have spoken to, I have spoken to people in Darien government that, you know, and I think someone might have alluded to it. Silstek, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, you know, is an hour's time waiting for that water to go down, and sometimes it's longer. What does that do to safety for people who might need an ambulance or a police officer to get in there? Hour isn't acceptable to some people, okay? So I don't think that's a good excuse. But the other thing I want to say is, you know, and maybe Dr. Burke will expound on it, is, you know, I think you kind of misunderstood me. I didn't say that the water was coming from a detention pond and causing subsidence. It's from the streets flooding, okay? The water collecting in the streets, I think it's kind of a bad, again, I'm not a civil engineer, but it seems like it's a bad theory or bad design, because I think it's eventually going to cause collapse. And we've seen it. We've had DuPage County out last year, okay? And they still haven't really finished. We're waiting for the earth to be put back in place and receded.
That's a different
And that's
system.
a different thing, so I'm not going to go into it. But I'm saying, I was told that DuPage County, okay, this is from somebody in your department, not you personally.
Sanitary district, we're talking sanitary pipe, not storm sewer pipe, so we can't be, there's two different systems.
I know
The storm
that.
sewer system, I can guarantee you, there has not been any collapse of a storm sewer system in that subdivision in my tenure here. I can tell you that there's been some inlets that have been regrouted just due to maintenance. And again, our maintenance program, every year we pave a road, we run through those roadways. We inspect every manhole, every culvert. In some cases, there's older culverts under roadways, which we replace with a different product today, a product that's gonna outlast us. So again, you know, sanitary sewers were made out of clay tile. The entire subdivision there was under the county, and when the city took over it, I'm not sure what year, but a lot of the sanitary system is older. It's a clay tile pipe. It's an orange pipe. Today's standards, they don't use that anymore. They use a different plastic, more
I've seen it.
durable.
Yeah, I know what you're
Okay,
saying.
so again, there's a lot of areas throughout town that DuPage County Sanitary District is doing maintenance and looking at infiltration and doing smoke tests as part of their preventive maintenance. So the storm sewer system works efficiently and optimally in your subdivision. I know you don't want to hear that. There's a sag point there, water sits there. That water is supposed to travel between those 2 yards for an overflow escape route. So it may only pond up to, not only, I shouldn't say it that way, but approximately 6 inches to a foot at worst.
Well, I don't know what you've observed. I can just tell you, because I live there, what I've observed.
Then I'll be
And, you
more
know,
than
the overland type of solution that you're talking about, there may have been at one time, okay? And, you know, I won't go into details about it, but it seems that, you know, if you have water that's going between houses, and the houses are pretty close, okay? So if the water starts flowing between houses, that's getting damn close to our houses,
Now,
okay?
with all due
Doesn't
respect,
it saturate the ground and create problems there for homeowners?
it could, but the overflow route in that particular case, there is a wider lot between the two homes, number one. Number two, we'll be more than happy to take a look at the existing grade to see if anything has been altered. That's very difficult to do because of lack of plans. We'd have to try to reach out to DuPage County, Dan, so I'll get together with you, see if we can determine what the grades of the overflow should be. If in the event that the grades were modified and we can prove it, then it'll be, you know, something we'll have to consider, whether with the resident and or the city.
My only comment on that, in terms of, and I think Dr. Burke was kind of alluding to this, with the bathtub type of thing. I don't know if I would agree with the air bubble thing. I think it's just too much water. And again, I've heard this from Darien government, that the systems are functioning as designed, okay? Well, as designed is not the equivalent of sufficient functionality at the current time, okay? they may have been designed probably in our area, probably, I'd say maybe 30 years ago, maybe longer than that, okay? A lot has changed. You know, we've always talked about areas being paved over, okay? You know, we have farmland behind our house. I was there when there was still farms there, and all that would absorb the water, okay? And maybe at that time, this Woodridge storm sewer system that I've alluded to, I don't know what its size is, and they've checked it to make sure it's clear, you know, no obstructions or anything like that. Maybe at one time, whatever diameter it is now, you know, as designed, it was able to handle the water. But now I think that so much more is flowing into it. It gets very quickly overwhelmed. And when I see it starting to upwell behind my house in the swale area there, okay, go to the front, I take a look out my front room window just to see if the street's flooding, because I know it's going to happen. I can only tell you what I've
Sir, why
observed.
don't you give me your name, write down your name, and we'll follow up with you and an email address so we can, you know, take a look at it further, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Does anyone else in the audience have a question or a comment they'd like to make? Sir, you want to come forward, please? I want everybody to have a chance to say something if they
Sorry for
like.
taking so long. I apologize.
Hi, my name is Harish. I live on Brompton off Manning. I moved in 2014 here, and so our neighborhood is kind of a low-lying compared to the. So what I'm trying to say is on Manning, they had the new construction there where they took off all the trees and all the new houses came up. So ever since that happened, I've started seeing a lot of water in my backyard, and it'll just pull up there, and my sump pump, and especially when it rains, it'll start collecting a lot, and sump pumps keep kicking in every 6 seconds, 5 seconds, and then of course this is during normal rains, not during the storms or anything. And I've been working with Mr. Gombach and with the city, and they're going to install like a drain in my backyard because there's a storm sewer. Mm-hmm. So my backyard abuts 3 houses. It's kind of low-lying, so all the water collects there, and so we're trying to see if we can put it into the storm drain. So the reason I came here today is, so of course this has been happening since that new construction came up, because when I moved here, that it wasn't the case. My backyard was dry, it was all fine. So after that came up, this started coming up. So what we started seeing now, so this is me and my neighbors too. I was just speaking to him the other day, and he was saying that, so we are seeing the driveways starting to settle a little bit more down, kind of sinking. And of course, the house foundation, it looks okay. There's no flooding in the house or anything like that. But, of course, you see cracks and there's normal settling and all that. But we're just concerned that is something else happening? Can somebody just take a look, do a little survey or something to see if, because they do have a retention pond in that new construction, but is it enough? Is it sufficient? Because just because of the fact that I've had the flooding in my backyard ever since that came up, and me and the 3 houses which are my neighbors, we all see the same thing where, so the neighbor's house's backyards too, there is some, so they're also saying that they're seeing more water stagnate there, though not as much as ours, because ours is a little bit more low-lying. So all I'm trying to say is maybe the water table has adjusted because of the construction, and would that, to Dr. Burke, would something like that affect the water table, where a lot of trees were taken down and a lot of houses came up, and since we were low-lying on the other side of the road, would that affect the water table so much that it causes flooding in the backyards and stuff like that?
I don't want to guess. I'll take a look. I'll sit down with Dan and Dan.
Sure.
Yeah, and with all due respect, the Rolling Knolls subdivision, detention, the drainage there is collected more so than it was prior to development. Okay, there's 2 detention areas there. Actually, yeah, 2 of them. Your concern on Brompton, it's a low-lying area, number 1. Number 2, there's insufficient drainage in the rear yards there. The grade of the pitch from, like, I don't have the streets right off bat here, but there's a storm sewer.
Brunswick, Brompton, yeah.
Right, there's a storm sewer that really should have been probably extended by the builder when it was built. And you were also built under DuPage County jurisdiction. So with this rear yard drainage project, and we're doing it, we have about 30 of these projects. I think we're doing it, we're putting in a 12-inch pipe, if I'm not mistaken. So that should eliminate 90% of your ponding, and your sump pump can also be tied into that storm sewer, which we'll put in there. We'll take another look at your home. If you want to write down your name and address, we'll come out there and take a look at it. As Dr. Burke stated, maybe there's some things around the house, whether it's the gutters aren't discharging far enough away from the house, whether the sump pump is too close to the house, whether the grade from the foundation is pitched away from the house or has something settled. Common settlements are around porches, decks, and or air conditioners, for example, right in that area where water will collect and go back into your drain tile. So we'll take a look at it.
Sure, and you're saying that that would, because when we came, it was not the case. Everything was dry, everything was fine. So, but also the fact that the new construction and all that stuff happening and all the trees got taken off, that's also contributing, or?
I would say definitely not, because the water is being, there's more water being collected now with that subdivision. than
Well, and
there was
Dan, it's
before.
not just the collection, why don't you just mention the release?
Oh, the
it's-
the release is a difference. The release is, was it 3 cubic feet per second?
I can't remember the exact size of the subdivision, but it's 0.1 cubic feet per
Well-
acre.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but the
So
point is.
Bottom line is
Go
that
ahead.
the release rate is slower than the natural flow, if that makes sense.
So it collects in the pond, but it's not released at a fast rate. It's released, as Dan said, at a rate slower than it was released coming from when it was just one house on that big lot, which it probably could have drained. I don't know at that point where it might have drained, but so that would have no bearing on your issue here. And one of the things that I'm not sure if it is happening in your area, but again, one of the reasons people do tie their sump pumps in is they don't get nuisance rear water in their own rear yards. So eventually, as we're talking about this sanitary sewer and disconnecting sump pumps, that will cause more water also into some of the backyards. But I don't know in this case if anybody was doing that. Most likely not.
I
But
don't, yeah.
So yeah, if you want to write down your name, and we'll be more than happy to follow up.
Anyone else from the audience have a question? Mr. Buell?
My name's Joe Buell. I live over at 7834 Regency Grove Drive. I think what the people that are here and the other people that didn't show up are trying to find out is, what can we do to have somebody really take a look at this? Hire the consultants, present the issues to the consultants, and see what can be done to help reduce some of the flooding or some of the issues that we're having. I don't think anybody's asking that you have to spend millions and millions of dollars or buy retentions area. It may not be needed. It could be a fix that's not a very expensive fix, but something that could be done. But I think what we need to do is get a consultant. We have consultants here today, and we need to communicate with these people. We need to see what has to be done, because sometimes we have the recurring issues. And even when work is done, there is no master plan. And different areas of the city have been developed at different times. There's been different issues. I live on Regency Grove Drive. We had quite a bit of water in the street a couple weeks ago. Back in July of 2016, we had an outburst in our area. We had even more water back in July of 2016, where the house is on the east side of the street. And I know Mr. Mayor's been over in our area. Over on Adams, the houses are higher, and as you keep going towards Cass, the grades keeps going down. And the houses across the street back then had water coming into their house, in the front of their house. I know in the meantime, there was a fix. They put 2 inlets. They're 12 feet apart on the east side of Regency Grove Drive. that still hasn't been fixed because we got a lot of water. There's been work done with Lester Lane because Lester Lane's higher. With the water coming down on a driveway for a private drive for 2 houses that come off Regency Grove Drive as it comes around the corner. More water is being diverted over onto Regency Grove Drive. And we talk about what's coming off other people's houses because they're behind us. All their rainwater is coming off their gutters, their sump pumps are pumping down on us. We're getting all their water. I tried a lot of the quick fixes that Mr. Burke mentioned. I had windows blown out in the basement before, put glass block windows in. I hired a private contractor locally from Darien to do some work for me to help with some of these issues. But we still got these issues in the area where we're at. When we had our street paved a few years ago, when that was, water started coming out of the street because we got a spring, a natural spring in our area. The pond that you see down on over on Cass Avenue wasn't there. At one point, it was in the back towards our subdivision, and they changed the dimensions to have the pond put up on Cass Avenue. So there's a lot of different issues, and I think we have to take a look at it. And I think it'd be nice to be able to find out if we still have the plans when that part of the subdivision was developed in the mid-70s, to see what they did. Maybe the sewers are inadequate. If we had larger sewers, we may not be having some of these issues. And I think, too, with what we have is we have the DuPage has a sanitary sewer across the street. And I know some people are complaining about the backup. Maybe their sewer isn't big enough to hold it when times come. And what's unusual is one of the neighbors on the east side of the street has a sewer where water is blown out of the sewer. It's on his private property. It's not on the public easement. With respect to the issue, when we had the rain last week or so ago, Regency Grove Drive is one way in and one way out. Permanent barricades were put up on Adams Street. If you wanted to get the police in there with the SUV, the vehicle would not have been able to go through the water the last time a couple weeks ago. If you wanted to get the paramedics in there, it wouldn't have made it through. They'd have to drive over people's lawns or go in between people's houses to get where they would have to go. So there's a lot of different issues. I think that we're not talking about spending a lot of money, but I think we have the consultants here. I think you should hire the consultants, let the consultants get some input. Let's see if we can get something to correct some of the problems and relieve some of the problems that people are experiencing. If you ever want to sell your house, you better make your disclosures. And those people, at some point, all real estate is sold. Those issues may come out and may have to be brought forward at that time. So I think it'd be well worth it economically to hire some consultants. Let's see what we can do and not worry about spending millions and millions of dollars.
If I heard you right, you said 2 homes flooded? Is that what I heard?
Well, mine came in with water, yes. A house that I have. I'm saying that in 2016, we had houses on the east side of the street where water was coming in the house because those houses are lower versus the houses on the west side of the street. And
Dan, where would that water have been coming in the homes? I don't know that.
I'm not familiar with any homes that were
me either.
impacted. The garages were pretty close to it, and then that was the concern was between the 2 homes where the overflow route was, and somebody had altered it. Between the 2 residents there, we worked with them. There was a stormwater easement, in which case we had regraded it so the overflow route would work efficiently and optimally right to the lake there. If you are referring to your property, and I believe it's the second house in off of Regency, where the grading over there coming from the back, so from the west to the east, your patio was at a lower elevation than the surrounding area, in which case you were impacted by water coming in there several years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Not only that, but recently, and again, it comes from the back. The back is higher.
Correct. It comes from the back.
There needs to be some help on those type of issues because when that subdivision was built back in the mid-70s, things were different than what they are today.
And with all due respect, Mr. Buell, when I was out there, I did look at between the 2 properties there that you own, and the suggestion and the recommendation then was to regrade the properties between the 2 homes so the water can flow towards
That's
the
not
road.
where it's coming from. It's
I
coming
understand that.
directly from the back, and I had hired a contractor, and I talked to the mayor about it locally to help alleviate it. And the point that I'm trying to say is that you got that water over on Adams Street, and I've got pictures. I gave the mayor some pictures. I can give you more pictures. And the 2 inlets that you put in on the street hasn't worked. It
Well,
hasn't worked. I'm
again,
telling you.
They work, but there's a sag point, the water through that storm sewer.
Well,
really-
there's nothing for the justification why the water starts to come out of the street. And the last time fissures were coming out of Regency Grove Drive with the water pressure being so great underneath the street. That shouldn't be happening. We should probably have some greater sewers, bigger sewers to keep some of this flood water, because when you're taking it from upstream, going downstream, we're getting all the water that we shouldn't have to be getting. And that's probably what's
And again,
a
I
lot
don't
of
know
the
what the
problems.
calculations are based on that subdivision, everything else coming from upstream. But the regulating governing factor is that pond right behind you, right behind the residents on Regency. On Cass Avenue, that's the governing point. Once that fills up, it has to go back under Cass and back to the east.
Well, I've seen it in the past where it's gone over Cass.
Correct. That's
And
an
it's
overflow route again.
overflowing because it's so great, and it's even went into the parking lot at the 7900 building at periods of time before some of the recent work was done. That parking lot had a lot of water.
All right, and there was an obstruction in there years ago.
Well, I'm saying that let's hire the consultants, let's bring these issues to the consultants, let's take a look at it, let's see what we can do, let's try to do some things to correct some of these problems in different areas of the city.
Thank you, Joe.
Mayor, one follow-up. Chris, I'm sorry, I had to follow up. I've heard this a few times. Well, let's just put bigger pipes in. Just for the education, what's a standard pipe? And, you know, what would you need to triple size of pipes? And is that without detention basins somewhere? You know, obviously increasing a pipe is fine, but is that much bang for your buck typically?
It would have been great if we knew all the problems of this world that might confront us 40 years ago. The difficulty is to make them pipes bigger, we have to make sure that we're not passing the problem downstream. That's one of the things I said in my presentation. We can't pass it downstream. So if we make a pipe bigger, we have to create storage to attenuate or to mitigate the increased impact. So, excuse me, it's frozen in time what we can release. And so we don't want people upstream making all their sewers bigger, so they're draining their area onto the downstream community.
Thank you, you've answered.
Thank you. Anyone else? I know we've had a lengthy discussion, but I'll welcome one or two more people. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Sue Rakowski, and I'm here for residents of Carriageway West. We have had ongoing issues through the years. Being a resident there for over 50 years, I have seen a lot of water. Mostly, it's my estimation that our water is overland water flow. In the past 10 years or so, there has been heavier water flow. Where this water is coming from, I've seen many storms. The water is coming from the east and the north of our subdivision. We have mushy grounds for days after a storm, where that water is still trying to get to the pumps or to the street outlet. I'm here hoping that the city could look at alternative methods that have been on your screen, Dr. Burke. We have mostly all of the residents affected have taken these precautions. That isn't stopping the overflow of the water, it's heading right for our houses. Couldn't a study be made to investigate culverts, or are any of these retention ponds or ponds on the golf course overflowing and coming in our direction? I don't have that data. I don't know that. But it is definitely more forceful than ever. So I'm here on behalf of residents asking for somebody to look into the overland flooding. Just to, it was just touched briefly in your talk, which I appreciated very much. Thank you. So if we could do something further, at least investigate. We have a whole golf course. We don't own it, but isn't there easements or anything that even ditches could be made? Is the creek on the golf course overflowing? It seems north of Plainfield Road, the water is flowing. Now, whether or not it's into the golf course or it's just from the homes around the area, but somewhere we are getting not only the rain, but as other people have mentioned, we are getting the runoffs from the homes built many years after our homes were built. So on behalf of residents, we are asking for further study to see what can be done.
In your Carriageway West, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, and this is affecting a lot of the homes in Carriageway West?
The ones I've talked to, I've sent Dan the list that I've taken a small canvas. I can't tell you how many homes have been affected, but it isn't just from the storm on June 26th. This has been ever since the subdivision was built.
So I'm sorry, what's the issues, just so I can understand them? I know that you and I have met. What are the specific issues? And
The specific issues that I feel is that we are getting too much water today versus 20 years ago.
too much water from
The
upstream?
north, upstream, the north and the east,
Okay.
okay? It's walking through that area days after the last storm. You can't believe how deep your feet sink into the ground. That water is still running. If we have another rain, it just starts, it's a cycle.
Are you talking about water invading people's homes, though?
They have, yes.
Well, with all due respect, I did follow up with several people, and a lot of that was sanitary issues.
Really?
At this point, there's 3 of them that were sanitary issues. We're working with one gentleman. We're working with, we just did some inspections through the golf course. So we're doing some additional work with the golf course there to determine whether something has to be revised or changed, so on and so forth.
I noticed, and I thank you for your email today about the area off of Glen Eyre.
Okay.
Okay, that, and even there, yes, to build a retention pond, who has the land for that in our area? It's not a feasible solution.
I think that was your house we were going to use, wasn't it,
You
Sue?
were going to volunteer my house. But the question is, what can we do to divert that overland water flow? And where can we divert it?
We'll just divert it next door. Unfortunately, that's what Dr. Burke talked about, that we cannot do that by today's standards. We're frozen in time. What we have, and again, without going...
However, I don't mean to interrupt, but this was caused by other developments, in my belief, the way, granted, we were a DuPage County development.
Correct.
And we're paying the price for that. But I believe there are solutions to everything. And working together, I feel that there's some way, even a little creek or a culvert between the back lot lines, something to help.
Well, with all due respect, I did talk to you and your neighbor
Right.
about the evergreen tree there that should be considered to be removed, because that has an impact on the water flow that's coming between the 2 yards. Mother Nature has raised the entire root ball system of that tree specifically, and that's due to all the clay that's in DuPage County. A lot of the trees want to grow up and out because they cannot penetrate the clay.
But my concern, and in all due respect, I hear you. A culvert between our houses, that's doable. But what I am wondering is, we don't want to stop the water, but it is just like it is a river flowing into our area.
Again, that's the overflow, side swale, side yard swales that were built for that subdivision. You have to accept that. If you want to put a culvert in there, by all means, we can assist you with sizing it if you want to put a culvert in there. What that's going to do at the end of the day, maybe just provide a channel, but it's not going to relieve anything. And keep in mind that you have some extensive landscaping behind your home too.
Very much so.
So, and with those ordinances intact today, more than likely, that would not be allowed.
That could very well be the case, but I'm not here just about my home. I'm here about the other people's home as well.
I haven't heard anything that you're looking for specifically besides your home. I mean, you didn't tell me.
I really didn't want to go into what my situation is. I'm just talking in general.
Correct.
Laurel and Heather.
What are we looking at though? I mean, are we looking at street
Dan,
flooding?
I'm sorry, interrupt for 1 second. One of the things we did do in our last Direct Connect is we encourage residents that have any issues to contact municipal services directly. Obviously, it's too hard to, fix things tonight. So if there is anybody left and they want to talk or they want us to look at their house, please let Dan know, because that'll give us more time to go out there again and look at things. It's just, might help tonight, Joe, getting through some of this.
Yeah, the thing is, I get seepage in my basement. I got a call from residents that Saturday. We were getting all the rain, and I'm getting calls for me to do something, and I'm with the shop vac as the seepage is coming in my basement. And so I understand what people are feeling. I empathize with that. And I don't think anybody here on the council, Mr. Burke or anyone, is saying that we don't when you have water in your street like that, when you have water coming close to your house, it's scary. And I understand that because I deal with that every time we have a heavy rain. I get the shop vac out, and I've got probably a broken drain tile on that one wall, and that's why I get it. And I want to avoid the $6,000 or $7,000 bill to go down there and fix that drain tile because I'm figuring it's not going to rain like that all the time. But I want you to know something. I said, we really do care. That's the reason we had Dr. Burke come tonight, and that's the reason we've let people come to the microphone and share their issues. And again, Mr. Gombeck is available. You can email him, give him a call. Please let him know the concerns.
Okay.
And I am following up with all those residents that you had given me, so we'll get all their information, and I am following up personally on those.
Just looking for a solution to divert the water some way.
Thank you. Sir, you've talked already. I really like to continue the meeting. Is it real quick?
Really fast question. It's for administrative and not functionality. If a storm sewer system in Darien, interfaces with another municipality's storm sewer system, what is Darien's recourse if we find out that their storm system really isn't capable of handling the water? Because it's not in Darien, but if we tie into them, I don't know what kind of agreement was made in the past about this. What recourse do we have to maybe get them to maybe modify their storm system? I think that affects a lot of people.
And maybe, Mr. Gombeck, you can respond to that maybe in writing to him and communicate that with him.
We'll give you a follow-up call on that because there's several different answers to that question.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Burke, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, sir.
I want to thank you and Mr. Lynch for coming out tonight. I want to thank the residents for being here tonight. I know this is a serious concern for all of you, and believe me, I think you've given the council a lot to think about. I know we'll be discussing it further. I do appreciate your time, and Chris, it is good to see you.
Good to see everybody. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
I hope the young mayor wants to pursue water resources.
I'm sure he's sitting here wondering why he's doing this tonight.
Future civil engineer.
I hope so.
Thank you. All right.
Madam Clerk, do you have a report?
There's no report this evening, thank you.
Mr. City Administrator, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mayor. I have one item, and let me just get back to my screen here. Okay. Put on the agenda tonight, really a general discussion, as we're getting close to, in our terms, close, because there's a lot of work to be done in terms of bidding out for for a citywide refuse program. And the mayor mentioned briefly that we had met and sat down a couple times now with Vaughn Kirschner, Jerry Cruzman, also, who are here tonight to maybe answer questions or at least hear the council's discussion. As the council recalls, about 5 years ago, it was renewal time for the municipal garbage contract. And at that point, just prior to us going out for bid and doing that, the city council had a goal-setting session and was really favorable towards going to a full cart program and virtually eliminating the stickers. And we were going down that path, and then when it got time to look at a formal contract, the city council at that time determined, I think it was 4-3, determined that they didn't want to go to an all-cart program. And I'm not sure if it was what they maybe heard from residents or all the details, but that had changed, and we stuck with the current program, which is a hybrid. Residents could rent carts, or residents could buy stickers. And as the mayor mentioned, we met this time, and we're really trying to get a handle on the for a number of reasons that I had put in the memo, get a handle on an all-cart program, whereby residents would, eliminate the stickers. But we also thought it was important, if we're going that route, to do at least talk to Waste Management, our current hauler, about added services. So what is in your packet this evening, and on the packet, if the residents wanted to look at it, is an opportunity for the city to go to a full cart program. Virtually, again, no stickers, but also unlimited program. So residents could put out as much garbage as they want. So if they fill up their tote and they have another 3 bags because they had a graduation party, they could put that out at no cost. And also yard waste could be leaves, grass clippings, brush like they do now, would have to be put out in a craft bag, but no extra charges. And I think the rates that we have worked on with Waste Management are very competitive. Not that they're the only game in town. The council in the past has either directed staff to negotiate with a current hauler for something favorable like we did last time, or go out to a bid, recognizing that there are less haulers than there were maybe a few years back, and there's a couple new ones also in the industry. But this was really an opportunity to hear from the council in terms of directing staff either to negotiate a program similar to what I had in the packet, or what kind of services we want, and maybe solicit proposals from companies. I will say that with Waste now and their predecessors, the service has been very good, very minimal problems or complaints. Anything's been rectified fairly quick. I know Waste helped out very recently with the tornado in the area that was hit, making sure people didn't have to put stickers out on everything. There was a lot of damage from the tornadoes, and they were very good working with us on that. So again, we have two issues: the services satisfactory, but the scope of services and how the city council would like staff to procure any prices is up for kind of feedback tonight. No formal vote. We're just trying to get some background from the council so we can get moving.
This is the third company that we've had on this contract, right? Was Veolia, then Arc?
Yeah, there was three I mentioned.
And then Waste Management.
Advanced, Veolia, but Waste has them
So
now.
your point about how these companies are small and there's
Right.
not as many to choose from.
Not as many, but there are a couple new ones out there too. I noticed one picked up Indian Head Park and a couple other towns, but there's not many. There's probably 4, I would say now, working out through the county and area, maybe 5, but.
The other thing is, what Brian didn't mention is we've done a certain amount of due diligence where I've talked to mayors from other towns that have other services. Brian's also looked at costs associated with other services. A lot of you know that the Hinswood subdivision has Groot Groot has. A lot of my friends in Hinswood tell me they have this, they have that. When we sit down and we met with the representatives from Waste Management, I told them one of the things I wanted to see was free yard waste pickup. I wanted to see unlimited garbage pickup. And I wanted to see something with regard to getting rid of the sticker program. And I think the gentleman, and Vaughn, tell me if I'm wrong, but if the number of stickers being purchased is going down, and with the number of stickers purchased going down, the cost of the stickers goes up. And if we did a hybrid program again with stickers, we would be seeing a higher price on stickers. They're $3.91 now. I think I don't know what they would be, but they would be much higher. We looked at senior citizens a number of years ago. The seniors had a concern. We negotiated an agreement that seniors would have a $12 a month charge for a cart versus the $25 that other people would pay. So 65 and older would have the option of having a $12 a month for a cart. We looked at things like that as advantageous to this program. The other thing is what you need to consider as a council is that this is our current service. They have routes established. We have all their equipment, although some of it says names of other other groups, like Joe pointed out. So you need to weigh whether or not it's good to go out and completely go to a new service or stay with Waste Management. But I think Brian and I both want to know what you think about it.
I'm all in favor of the cans, because I think from a beautification standpoint, watching stuff blow down the street. I mean, there's plenty of times on a Tuesday night, and my pickup is Wednesday, and Lisa asked me, "Are you taking the garbage out of it?" No, it's it's storming. I don't want to see everything blowing all over the neighborhood. Okay. But then I also think about, like, they talk about they have a 96-gallon option. Well, we talked about the garbage cans in your ward, where these people are going to be putting these cans. So then I think we're going to have to also look into that, because we addressed the issue about garbage cans storage, on the east side of town. So that's something we have to comes into play as well. But I'm for not driving to Jewel at 10 o'clock at night because I forgot the sticker for my garbage can. Okay.
Tom?
Yeah, I was in favor of the cans last time this was up, 5 years ago, and I switched over at that point, and it's been great personally. I did have some questions regarding reviewing that, and the term substantial increase for stickers. I read through it. I didn't see a dollar amount anywhere, and I'm not sure if they know what it would be. However, if we're going to be asked to make a choice, I think we have to know that. If we have people saying, "Well, I still want to keep a sticker," and we say, "Well, but now it's $5.50," it might their position might be different as if it was, $4.07. I don't know what the word substantial means, so we will need to know that in order to make an educated decision.
I think they have an answer that they can give you. Are they?
You guys, if you want to come up now, there might be some questions from the council. You can come up.
Vaughn, I think you did give us what a sticker might cost, plus what you called a service fee.
Good evening. I'm Vaughn Kirshner and Jerry Kruzman from Waste Management. We are very appreciative to be here tonight. And to your question, Alderman, if the city stayed with stickers, and one of the things that we shared with the mayor and Brian is that stickers have gone down from 180,500 in 2016 sold to 155,000 just recently in 2020. Substantial drop. And when things drop like that, when the stickers drop like that, we're not able to cover our costs. We assumed certain sticker sales when we did the initial start of the contract, and when they drop like that, we can't cover our costs. So going forward, if we were to introduce or continue on with the sticker, we would have to introduce what we call is a monthly base rate. So in addition to buying a sticker, you'd have to have a monthly base rate, and that is just to cover our basic operating costs. That would be around $525 a month, and then you'd have a sticker of $650. So
and that's exactly what I was looking for, because we are going to have people saying, "I want to keep the sticker." Right. So if they need to be able to make an educated decision as to $6.50. Even if I put my garbage out twice, that's $13 plus 5, that's 18. For $7 more, I get unlimited.
Right.
Now it starts making sense. But if it's, and again, this is the conversation we had 5 years ago, where people saying, I only put my garbage out twice a month, and I don't want to pay $17. I want to pay $3.50 at the time, so $7. So just for the purposes of us making a decision, I think thank you very much. That's exactly what I was looking for.
I think the other thing that needs to be mentioned, Vaughn, is we talked about the electronics and the hazardous waste pickup, which, if people have to go out and get rid of a TV set, you're paying $20, $30 at a drop-off. For $1.40 extra a month, you could put out hazardous waste and have it at your front door and have you pick it up.
Absolutely. It's really a fast-growing program. It's our At Your Door program, and many communities struggle with how to get rid of electronics, TVs especially, household hazardous waste. You go to your garage, your basement, you have all these materials that have been probably down there for years. How do you get rid of them safely? And we developed this program called At Your Door, and like the mayor was saying, for $1.40 a month, you can use this service unlimited, and it can will come to your door on a specified date, not necessarily the regular collection day, and we'll pick up your household hazardous waste and your electronics. And again, it's unlimited. And then the Public Works doesn't have to deal with picking up maybe a TV that was strewn in a.
That's where we just call you.
Yeah.
So if I'm cleaning out my garage on a Saturday and I find a handful of things I need to get rid of, my garbage day is Wednesday, I can, in essence, pick up the phone, call, or an app, I think, or you guys were talking about too online, and arrange to have that stuff picked up, say, Monday, maybe Tuesday. I wouldn't have to wait till garbage day.
Right. It is generally going to be not on your collection day, but it could.
Right.
And it's with a separate truck. And typically it's about a 2-week lead time. And the reason for is you get a package in the mail of packing materials and instructions. And so then the instructions tell you to put it out at outside your door. Some of the materials you'll be asked to package up in a bag and label, that type of thing.
Okay.
So.
And I think, we've talked about this before, and there, for some reason, the stickers usage has gone down, so the carts might account for some of that. But we all know what happens with a sticker program over time. People find alternative places to bring garbage, and that affects people who are buying stickers, who are renting carts, and that's significant. I'm surprised the number of, when I drive around areas on a garbage day and see the lack of garbage cans out, but I see a lot of recycling cans out. And again, some people don't have that much garbage, but there is, that segment that does bring their garbage elsewhere. And again, that certainly is what's causing, looking into the future, would cause a huge increase in the sticker price. Or you're going to have the people who do rent the carts subsidize that by doubling the cart price. So there are some, I think now over time, some built-in inequities that we are seeing with the program. And again, over time, recycling, at some point when this all started, the haulers were getting, people were thinking, boy, you are making a lot of money. No wonder we're getting free recycling. And, that has changed over time. And we talked about that with the council 5 years ago. You're not hitting the jackpot on recycling. I think it's worth a quick overview of what's happened in that market, so at least the people at home and the council understands that's not where you're making money off of the city.
No, there's not gold in the garbage, as many people think. And just like you were saying, Brian, 5 years ago, you had said things changed. From that point to this point, things have significantly changed. I'm sure you all heard about a couple years ago what happened with China, who is probably the largest importer of recyclable material. They changed the playing field. The playing field used to be acceptable levels of recycled contamination being, 10, 15%. Now the new guideline, and other market areas are following suit, it's 0.5. It's almost unattainable. It's almost zero contamination. So 5 years ago, we would get maybe $20 a ton, residential ton. Maybe, yeah. Now it's costing us upwards of $70, $80 a ton to process the material and then, sell it to markets. Waste Management is a recycling company. We're committed to recycling. We built a brand new MRF, state-of-the-art MRF in Hodgkins that just opened last year. And all our markets are now within the United States. So we have cultivated new markets, developed them, and we are very well situated to move forward with recycling.
So it's something for you to consider as a council in terms of the package that's been presented, Joanne?
Can I say something?
Yes.
I am a senior citizen, and there's no way I put out garbage every week. And this cost of the sticker currently is $3.91. And what you're saying is that there would be a fee, but if I were to get this 35-gallon toter, you're identifying me as a senior. And it's gonna cost me $12 a month, which is a lot more than what I pay for garbage right now. I'm by myself. I don't have the waste. I recycle, but I don't have the waste.
Understood.
And I'm sure there are other seniors, well, not up here, but in the audience, that they're probably in the same situation.
But what he's saying is, if we went to stickers, you would pay $5.50 plus $6.50 for a sticker, which is the cost of what a tote is per month, $12.
But I would only have to use one sticker because I mean, in the long run,
You'd pay.
but I'm not gonna be identified by that 35-gallon can out in front of my house either.
Well, there are other people that would have that 35-gallon container that don't have the 96.
But it's only for seniors.
Is there any way to bring the cost down on seniors, or is that an option?
Well, and that's something that we discussed as a group. We can bring it down, Alderman, but then the other rate is going to end up going up.
Lester, I originally asked for an $8 card for seniors.
And I will tell you, from looking around at rates, $12 fixed fee for unlimited garbage, that is, I have not seen that anywhere. There are a lot of contracts that will give residents a 10% discount, but now, again, with this program, you get a bulk item every week that you would have had to pay stickers for before. You have unlimited yard waste. I talked to one person who said, I might start cutting my grass again if this goes through, because I can put out the yard waste now. So I think Joanne's point is what is brought up every time there's a contract renewal, but it's still the inequities of the current program. We've talked about a lot of things. We even talked about, recycling maybe should have a sticker because there's a cost to that, not just to the company, but there's a cost and effect to other residents. So, again, $12 it might be more than Joanne's paying today, but it will not be more than she's paying, with the sticker prices. And I think that, if we were to take this information, if the council said, go get some prices, all the haulers are going to want to know the same thing, because it's the same, you have to have a set of things for the haulers to bid on. So they're all going to have similar information. They're going to know what our sticker rate is, and we're going to get higher prices. So Joanne's, in her example, $12 is really good, and I can only say that because I have not seen that anywhere out there for a take-all program.
One thing that Vaughn had mentioned was that the stickers, the sale of stickers had gone down, but then you had also said that the toters had probably increased. Do you have a comparison for the toters for those 2 years to say how it's increased?
That is a very good question, and yes, we do. They increased from 2,000 to 2,500.
That's all.
But that's a good move. It's a good move. And a lot of times what we see is that when you see new residents coming into a community that have had carts in other places, they have had that experience, they like it, and they get it when they come here. And so, I think the 500 is a good move, and I think looking at the percentage of residents with carts, you are at a good point right now to make that change or make that leap going to all carts. And there's a lot of benefits. I think some of the things were pointed out. Elimination of stickers, big thing, no need to run by them. The elimination of the recycle bid. I think one of the aldermen, I think you said The cart contains everything, both garbage and recycling, so it's a lot cleaner. Uniformity, it looks nice, the aesthetics of it. Ease of use, both for seniors and non-seniors, the two wheels, you can pull it easily. Safety, durability. And the thing I wanted to really point out is education. With bins, it's difficult to do a lot of education with the residents on recycling and what is a contaminant, what isn't. When we move to carts, what we then start doing is we're able to put or tag contaminated carts. We put a cart hanger on those contaminated carts, and that's when residents really start understanding and learning what is recyclable and what isn't. And it's been very effective in other communities. The city of Elgin, we did this. They dropped from over 40% contamination to now they're down to 16. It took 3 years to accomplish that, but we moved that needle, and it was all through the curbside education. So that's, I think, one of the biggest benefits of going to carts too, is that education.
One of the things we talked about too, so the council's aware, we talked about what rates would look like if we only, if residents recycled every other week. So every week they're having their garbage, but every other week they're having recycling. And that's, that price is in the proposal I included with the packet. But again, we're looking for ways to even make it, a bit cheaper. But that's another, ultimately, a question, for the city council.
And
but
the thing that, and just to add on, to piggyback on that, and tell me if I'm wrong, Vaughn, if we went to every other week, and I already had a 96-gallon recycling bin, and I was going to overflow that, I could get a second one for no charge.
Correct, sir. Yes.
If I had the room in my garage.
Right, I know. I was wondering why you looked at me when you said it first. Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Corrin.
Back here. I know I'd have to say something about this. I don't mind being identified as a senior. In fact, I hope to get to be even more of a senior. And the totes, I think the totes make sense, but again, I don't really have a dog in that fight or care. What I do care about, though, is the rates the taxpayers are paying, and I just want to make sure it's the most effective possible. A contract like this is going to be generating over $2 million for them. We as a city, we go out to bid anything that's over $5,000. We go out for quotes to try and get competitive bids. And as much as I like waste management, I think you guys have done a great job. I think we, in terms of doing our due diligence, also have to get quotes from other people, other companies. Again, the council can talk about what parameters, whether it's totes, stickers, or whatever. I don't care from that standpoint, but I do care in that I think we should get quotes from other vendors just to make sure that we are getting the most effective bang for our buck for the residents. I understand the effectiveness. It's easy because these are the guys we're dealing with now. You don't have to change totes or anything. The Indian Head Park comment comes from my daughter. They went about 1.5 years ago. They still have totes and stickers. Again, I don't really care from that standpoint, but very competitive prices. I don't know if you've been able to look them up, Brian, but I do have them for you. Mm-hmm. Again, in terms of our due diligence, times are different, companies are different, but I'd just like to see us go out for bids from several others once you guys all agree on whatever those parameters are.
We did look at costs that other residents are paying in other communities with other services. We even looked at what Hinswood residents are paying, and they're actually paying a few dollars more to a different
now those
service.
are unincorporated areas, and they may be a smaller facility. I can show you the rates right now on Indian Head Park. Again, it's not apples to apples, but low rates, and you can pick your 35, 65, 95. For me, a 35 is fine. I really don't have room for a 95, but lower rates for the smaller ones also. I can show you those rates right now. Again, in terms of doing our due diligence, what you say may be true, but I'd just like to see it on paper for our residents, so I know what I'm recommending to them or what you're recommending to them is the most cost-effective for what we're getting. That's my only comment.
Anyone else? Tom?
I had a follow-up question. On the pamphlet, it says senior rate for limited refuse service with a 35-gallon refuse cart. What's limited refuse service mean?
Limited refuse service is what is contained in that cart.
So a senior can't put more than...
Correct. Correct.
That means no recycling then and no yard
Oh, no,
waste?
no, no. No, what a limited, what the Alderman was asking is strictly for refuse. So whatever goes in that 35-gallon cart, that's what we will pick up. If there's an extra bag or anything for garbage, we would not be picking it up. It's just limited to that 35-gallon cart. We can pick up your recycling, no problem, unlimited. We can pick up your yard waste, unlimited. But what would be limited would be your refuse in that 35-gallon cart.
But one bulk item,
One bulk item, yes,
a
correct.
week, pickup week.
You can get rid of that old sofa, Joanne.
I don't have an old one.
I do. Any other questions? Again, tonight was just, we wanted to get some feedback from you. We'll be discussing it some more. If you have any additional comments, why don't you email Brian and let Brian know. Vaughn, thank you very much for coming out
Thank you,
tonight.
appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. All right.
So, I'm sorry, Mayor, just going forward, I understand generally what, you know, what you said, what we're gonna do. Do we wanna go to the, you know, a committee and get back, or you want this to happen again, probably among the full council? It's something that I think it will be helpful and save time if we, maybe in 2 weeks, come back for another discussion with the council. Maybe I could send something out and get direction, or if anybody has comments on the carts, you know, you know, if enough aldermen today said, oh, I love the carts, or I hate the carts, that would give us a little insight. Or if you want to wait 2 weeks out, we'll send out a little more info and maybe have this same discussion in a couple weeks.
Well, you basically have the package in front of you. So you have their proposal there in front of you. Take a really good look at it, maybe give some thought to the services, give some thought to the cost. If you want to do some of your own comparisons with other communities that you know, residents who have other services.
To Treasurer Corn's point, are we going to go out for bid for 2 additional bids or no?
That's the second question for really the question for the council is, what are the services that we want to put into the next contract? And then secondly is, do you want to go out to bid, or you want us to have waste management?
I tell you what, I love the no sticker option. I purchase like 2 sleeves of stickers every other week, and it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So I
So
love that
let me ask you a
idea.
question.
And
From a-
unlimited, I love it.
From a fairness standpoint, how fair is the RFP process, since Waste Management just put their stuff out in the public, and it's on our website?
That's the world we live in, Joe.
Right.
That's all I can tell you. I mean, we get.
They could also rebid on it, Joe.
Oh yeah, no. You're right, Mike. I'm sorry, and we would come up with an RFP, and they would whoever was interested would fill in the blanks.
Okay.
As long as we know the service level to include in the bids, you know, then you would be apples to apples, and waste, and the other companies would bid whatever they're gonna, be formal.
Something that you can't measure outside of a bid process is the quality. I talked to the mayor of another community who has another service, and I've heard people brag about it, and she said they're going out to bid for a new service because of the sloppy work of that business. So, I mean, I found that
In this case, it wasn't waste either.
this case, it wasn't waste. But, you know, you can get somebody who's got a cheaper cost, but how do you know the quality of the service? Michael, you don't need to get up. I know what you're going to say.
No, I'll give you some numbers. I mean, this is Indian Head Park. They went a year and a half ago. I've talked to a lot of the neighbors there. I babysit 2 days a week over there. In terms of their cost, they have a 35, 65, and 95 gallon. Granted, they have partial sticker, but year one for the 95 gallon is $15.55. The 35 gallon is $14.35. Now, they don't differentiate seniors, but these are dramatically lower. These are $10 a month lower than we're talking about.
Is that unlimited, Mike?
I'm sorry?
Is that unlimited? I don't recall.
Well, that's for the 95. 95, for the 95 gallon.
But if somebody has extra more than, is it stickers on
Then,
top of
then
that?
you'd have to sticker on top of that, but the sticker is $2.85.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why I'm saying you need to get your apples and apples together, but I think you're doing a disservice to the residents if you don't go out and get competitive quotes. I agree with what you're saying, Joe, but then we can check. We check the backgrounds of the other people that we get bids on from other things to make sure they're doing okay. Again, heard nothing but positive things here, and I know the costs are dramatically different, but again, it's not apples and apples. All I'm saying is decide as a council what your apples and apples are, go out for the bids. Hopefully Waste Management comes back and they're the low bidder. We're happy with them. They're there now. Maybe we can even get the number lower than it is right now.
And the
But-
example Mike has is for Indian Head Park, who, there was a spin-off garbage company from another company, and that was, Indian Head was their first contract. I think
Right.
they have a couple more now.
Yeah.
I did find a couple things, though, Mike, I could talk to you about. I saw, again, I don't go by what I read in the paper or anything either. I want to
Yeah.
check it out, but some other issues. So, you know, we can get references and all that. So, again, it's just, the council has, it's your discretion. The council has done it both ways. That's all, you know, I'm saying, you have the ability, if you're happy with the service, or we can go to bid. And I think that's one of the questions I'll be asking in a couple weeks, when we can then, I guess, get some direction to move forward.
Yeah, I just hate to have to do something for a couple $1 million a year without making sure we're being cost competitive for our residents, and then evaluate other things. If there's a negligible difference between costs, then we know what we've got in hand, then you can evaluate it. That's all I'm saying. Just get all the information before you make the decision.
Can I ask a question? No. Is it possible that we, I mean, I don't want to create work for people, but I know we did this with other discussions we've had where we've compared what we do compared to our surrounding areas. Is it possible to see like what, you know, like Westmont, Woodridge, I mean, Mike brought up Indian Head Park, what other communities nearby do in terms of refuse and recycle?
I've talked to the mayors of Westmont, the mayors of Woodridge, and the mayor of Bolingbrook regarding the companies they used and the services they had compared to what we were being proposed by Waste Management.
I have that. Lisa helped.
have-
and-
Yeah, could you share that
and
with,
did a survey. I can have that in the packet
if you could
for
share
next
that with
meeting.
us,
Yeah,
we'd
we have that.
appreciate it. Or I know I would.
Okay. Anything else?
I guess make a quick comment. I mean, I probably would be fine with the service. I guess one question that Mr. Corner brings up a good point is that I do quotes all day long too, and a little bit in sales. And if a business, Waste Management, you know, really has to grow, has the pressure on you guys, then you're going to lower your margin that you're willing to accept. And that's something we don't necessarily know, right? So unless you go out for an official bid, you don't know that if someone else bought 10 more new trucks, you guys have 20-year-old trucks, and new trucks are more fuel efficient, so they can offer you a lower price. So I guess someone that is in the bidding process, there's so many little intricacies that we might not know about just looking at comparing. If it's 5 or 6%, I'd probably say no bid, but Mike just mentioned like 30%. That sort of opened my eyes right there. So I think that the bid process sort of makes a very good point, because you don't know what angle or what equipment everyone has. I mean, if everyone's electric, you could outbeat anyone. Probably, you know, I'm working on electric garbage trucks right now at work. So I mean, you know, you run those, you're going to be super cheap versus $100 filling out a diesel tank versus $10 filling out an electric truck, right? It's, you know, so he makes a very good point.
Anything else?
If one, he's got his hand up.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, if I can just make a couple comments. Haulers don't have electric trucks, but we at Waste Management have CNG trucks, and we do that because we're environmentally friendly, and we want to be environmentally friendly. I appreciate the comments made here, and one thing that we always say is that when you do comparisons, you got to make sure you are looking apples to apples. Every contract is different, and you know that. Indian Head Park is totally different. So when you look at contracts, please make sure. I will tell you this right now. Will you get a lower bid? Absolutely. We pride ourselves, in advance pride ourselves in the service. And I'll tell you a story that just happened last week. I just renewed with a small town west of DeKalb for another 5 years. Several years ago, we lost the city of DeKalb to another company. And in this other town that just renewed last week, the board members had no question about renewing with us. It was unanimous because of our service. They didn't even question where the rate was because they loved our service. And then they went on to say amongst themselves, have you gone to any City of DeKalb meetings? And the gentleman that brought this up said, every time I go to one of their meetings, all they do is complain about their garbage company. So that gives me an opportunity to go back 2 more years, I'm counting it, back to DeKalb, you know, and say, hey, not only are we a local company in DeKalb, but remember our service. And so that's what I just want to leave you with today. So, thank you.
Ted?
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, obviously Mayor Marquez and myself have been sitting on the council the longest. And when I first got on, they had the garbage strike, and I can't remember the name of the company, but we basically got rid of them, went to a new bid. The new bid that we went to, we were there 4 or 5 years, and personally, it was just an absolute train wreck, I thought, because there's always problems. Every time I put out a garbage, I had the guy basically, tell me this is doing this wrong or whatever. It was, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm trying to pay for a service here. There's an issue, okay, but there's always a problem. And there was times when they just wouldn't pick on up. And then finally, we're with Waste Management now. And 5 years ago, when this came up for a discussion for what do we do? Do we extend it out another 5 years? I was the first person to say go another 5 years because of the service. So yes, that is an important issue. And I agree with, Treasurer Corn, we always got to look at bids. We got to do what's in the best interest of the city of Darien. But when we do make this decision, we better take a look at, apples to apples, okay? Service and quality versus cost and so forth. I'm just going to leave it at that. So.
Yeah, and I'll give you 2 examples. I had a woman call me up. She's 89 years old. Her neighbor was 94 years old. And they lived in the Woodmere, not Woodmere, they lived in the Woodlands. And it's about 20 feet from her garage down to the bottom of her driveway. And she said it's difficult at 89 and 95 just to bring that cart down. And we called Waste Management, and they said, I think they gave us a sticker for each one of them that they put on their cart, and all she has to do now is she had to raise her garage door, put the cart right outside her garage door. They came, they put it down, they loaded it, they brought it back up. I mean, that's something that you don't get a lot from a lot of different services. The other thing I'll bring up is the mayor of one town told me that their current service doesn't finish routes all the time. They'll leave homes, they'll do half a block and leave 9 homes unfinished. She says our public works department is picking up almost as much garbage as our waste hauler is picking up, because our public works guys got to go out and pick it up. And this is a different service. And I'm not going to name the service or the town, but I'm telling you, this came to me from another mayor. And so I think Ted is right. I think it's the quality of the service. We can go out to bid, but I think when you go out to bid, you also have to consider the quality of what you have versus what you might have. So I agree with you, Michael. You owe it to the residents to take a look at what other people are going to offer you, but quality does count for something. Because in this town, people will let you know when they're not happy with their garbage service.
Fully agree.
Anything else? Okay.
I will be very brief. I had more to say on this, but it's late.
Just your name, sir.
Doug Hodak. I live at 7612 Wilton and Darien here. I just want to make the point. I was here 5 years ago. I was one of the guys that said, please don't take our stickers away. So I want to be that voice this time early in the process to let you know there is a significant portion of the population that would prefer the stickers. When it comes to the matter of garbage, there's 2 types of residents, those that produce a lot and those that don't. And those that do, or you would guess, families, two parents, 2, 3 kids, a dog, a fish, whatever. Those are the people that buy the sleeves of stickers. And, that should have the CAN program. That would benefit you. Absolutely. And then there's the other side of the equation, which is seniors. We heard one here. Dinks, dual income, no kids, single people that don't produce a lot of garbage. We use 2 stickers, my wife and I use 2 stickers a month. And I want to keep that. I like everything that's been talked about here. I have no aversion against waste management or some of the other programs and features that we're talking about here. But I do want you to consider, as we start this process, leaving the option for stickers for the population that would benefit from it. That's really all I had to say. So
thank you. It takes us to department head information questions. Chief Thomas, you had a report?
Sure.
In March of 2021, the City Council discussed various parts of House Bill 3653, which is now known as the Safety Act. And I pointed out a number of potential negative consequences to the police, to the city, and to the community based on that Safety Act. The drafters of the bill met with other legislators, chiefs, state's attorneys' offices, ACLU, and other stakeholders, and had a very good, robust conversation about the Safety Act. And I told you at that time that hopefully they'll pass a trailer bill, and they did pass that trailer bill. And then the governor signed it on June 25th, and then it became law this past July 1st. So a number of things changed. A lot of things changed, but I'm going to try to shorten it up due to the time we're here. One of the things that changed was, or actually a number of things changed, was under the use of force. And so they talked about totality of the circumstance. That's no big change for us. The courts, the state's attorney's office, chiefs looking at the use of force have always incorporated the totality of the circumstance in the decision making, so it's nothing new for us. It's no impact to the officers. It's been the case law forever. It's just now codified. No big deal. The Safety Act requires an officer to identify himself and to give a verbal warning before deadly force. Again, that's nothing new. It's been in law since 1985 under Tennessee versus Gardner, so there's no impact. The Safety Act talks about a person committing suicide, and an officer shouldn't use deadly force to stop a person from killing themselves. Common sense. And so that's in the law, and it's now just a legal standard. We've always had a legal standard or a policy on escalation and de-escalation of force, so for the Darien Police Department, it's really nothing new for us. The law talks about not using deadly force in order to stop a property crime. Again, Tennessee versus Gardner, 1985, that's been the law regarding fleeing felons. Chokeholds is another one that they talk about a ban on chokeholds. There's not a ban on chokeholds. It's severely restricted. So you can only use a chokehold when it's a deadly force situation. That's been the law for some time. It's been our policy for some time. I've been reviewing officer use of force for almost 6 years here, and never once have we used a chokehold or any kind of restraint around the neck, throat, area. That's good. They did do a favor, and they redefined what a chokehold is. And so some of the techniques that may be around the head or neck area that is not a choke are not banned. So that's a better change that came through the trailer bill. Officers are, I told you about a problem that with the discharge of a taser and less lethal, that the thought pattern behind it was to stop using some heavy-handed force during riots, but what the law did was change it for all uses of force, not just during riots. So they went back and changed some of that use of force language, so now tasers are a good viable option to use. Again, there's no impact to us on use of force that way. And there was a section about not using deadly force to prevent escape. Again, it's Tennessee v. Gardner, so it's no, again, there's no change. So almost all the changes that were put together regarding use of force was already a policy of the Darien Police Department or has no real effect on the Darien Police Department. So it worked out well. Keeping in the spirit of the reforms, but also making those reforms so that they're not so restrictive to put an officer in trouble, put the community in danger, those type of things. So the trailer bill did very good by fixing some of those things. The Safety Act has a duty to render aid. Our policy has always been a requirement to render aid. So when a person has a result of use of force or otherwise needs medical assistance, officers are required to do that. So that's a good thing. Duty to intervene, again, we've always had a policy on duty to intervene. Obviously that came to light big time in the George Floyd case when you had 3 officers that did not intervene and stop the situation from occurring up there in Minneapolis. It is now the law of the land in Illinois that you're required to intervene. And again, it's not a big change for us in Darien because that's always been our policy. Resisting, obstructing arrest, I gave you the situation of an officer that trying to protect a crime scene, and somebody walked into that crime scene. Under the Safety Act, we could not take any action because there's not an underlying crime. So under the trailer bill, they've changed that and separated. In the code, it always used to be resisting and obstructing arrest, and so it was always the same. Now they kind of separated the two. So resisting arrest it has to have an underlying crime. Makes sense. If you're resisting, you should be resisting an arrest. Obstructing, you can obstruct an officer, you can obstruct the paramedics, but now if you do that, you can be arrested because it doesn't require an underlying crime. No-knock search warrants. There's some rules around no-knock search warrants requiring the officers involved to wear a body camera, supervisors to verify the address and some other issues. Darien has never done, as far as I know, a no-knock search warrant. They're extremely rare. State's attorney very rarely approves a no-knock search warrant. So for us, again, it's no real policy change or an issue that's going to affect us. To get a no-knock search warrant means you're going after somebody that you don't want to know that you're coming. And typically those are going to be done by merit, the SWAT team versus officers in the Darien Police Department. Misconduct. An officer commits misconduct when he intentionally or recklessly fails to perform any mandatory duty as required by law, knowingly performs an act that he knows is forbidden by law. So a lot of those things I just discussed, you used to be able to sue the police before cause of them. You could be suspended or terminated, and now you can be criminally arrested for a Class 3 felony. So a lot of change. Obviously, that's going to be impactful, but really no change for our officers. A sworn affidavit, when a citizen filed a complaint against an officer, they had to swear to the facts, and now there's they eliminated the requirement for an affidavit, a sworn affidavit. Again, it's no impact on us other than a sergeant who used to take those complaints now has one less piece of paper to fill out, so that's, I guess, easy. But there's always been situations where you would take a complaint even if somebody would not file that sworn affidavit. So if somebody's alleging some criminal conduct, if somebody's alleging some other use of force or racial profiling or any major issue, we would always take those complaints even without a sworn affidavit, and we would take anonymous complaints as well. So it's no impact on us. The Local Records Act requires the police department to maintain all of disciplinary records. Again, no impact on us. We maintained all those disciplinary records, so it's not going to make any kind of change. There's now requirements for a number of monthly reports. Deaths in custody, it's been the law in the past. It's now current law. There's some small little changes to it, but no impact on us. Monthly reports for mental health incidents, that will impact us. We never had to make those reports before. We now have to make those reports. We have an agreement with DUCOM to add a code, so now it makes it easy. We run that code monthly. We figure out from Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board what they want in format, and we send that off. So that is a change, but it's pretty low impact. Monthly reports on use of force and appropriate reporting to the FBI. I think this is fantastic. In the past, police agencies were very poor in reporting the use of force, especially the FBI, law enforcement officers killed and assaulted Summary, Leoka. We had very bad information. It was about 72 to 78% of law enforcement agencies would report, and then we get bad information, and things occur from there. So I think that's a very good change for us. Military equipment, we never used any military equipment. LESCO is the acronym, and I don't remember what it stands for. But we don't use that, and even the equipment that is banned, I don't know who would ever get a tracked vehicle, 50 caliber weapon and anything like that that's banned, but it is banned. Body cameras, they're kind of fun to shoot. I don't know if you ever found one, but not for policing. Body cameras, body-worn cameras, we don't currently have them. By statute, we're not mandated to have them for a few more years now. I think they're a wonderful tool. When a lot of these changes and the little things were happening last year, I think we had 3 false complaints. They were on video because we have the car cameras, and so they help a lot in keeping down false or frivolous complaints, and it'll be great to have them once we move in that direction. Again, the trailer bill corrected some of that language that I talked about last time that was problematic with an officer failing to turn it on or turning it off when they're not supposed to. They fixed some of the language about being able to review the videotape prior to writing a report and those types of things. So some things that I talked about last time that were problematic got kicked, so they were supposed to become effective July 1st, but they're not going to become effective July 1st. They'll become effective January 1st, and with the hopes that we'll have further discussions with stakeholders to work that through. And I talked about the Class B, Class C misdemeanor, not being a custodial arrest and issues that way. Prisoners receiving 3 phone calls, which is kind of funny because it's unlimited now, and restoration of suspended license and how that's going to work out. So that's a good thing. In the past, you would always put out a monthly report, and it's been problematic since June of 2019 when we went to a new program called Hexagon. Through a lot of different things, I was able to start getting that information, so those will start coming out again. Didn't have enough time to finish it up, but just to give you some numbers and where we're at as a crime. Violent crime from this year, this time, to last year, this time, crime's down about 42%, so that's a good change. Total crime.
Did you say 42?
42%.
42, okay.
Almost, well, 40, I'll go 43 because it's 42.9, just depends. Part 1 crimes, total crime is down 28%. So again, that's a good thing to see. About 34 fewer victims of crime year-to-date last year to year-to-date this year. Obviously, last year was a COVID year, which really threw a lot of monkey wrenches into things. But a good change regardless. And if you looked out at a 5-year change, it's 30%. A 10-year change is 58%. So crime is coming down very well in the city of Darien. People are quite a bit safer. Traffic crashes were unique as well. This time compared to last year, we have 32 more accidents than we would have had. But if you compare it to 5 years ago, we're down 17% from 5 years ago, so almost 32%, 32 accidents fewer than there was 5 years ago. So COVID year, especially during March and April, traffic counts just dropped off the table, and so did accidents. And so I would imagine by the end of the year we're going to be as good as we were in 2020. Enforcement, the officers are just working extremely well. Couldn't be more proud of them. Moving violations are up 122%. Total enforcement actions are up 145%. DUI arrests are up 88%. So they're really out there doing a lot of work. So we're talking going from 1,808 tickets or either warning tickets or citations to 4,403. So significant change in that workload. So and that workload again is smart workload. So speeding is up. Speeding enforcement is up 144%. Violations there of a traffic control device, either stop sign, stop light, those type of things, are up 151%. Distracted driving up 130%. Lane violations 169%. Yield violations up 60%, and turning violations up 105%. So again, the officers out there working very hard, and we're going to have some good results from that. So that's the end of my report. So any questions?
Any questions for Chief Thomas? I'm particularly happy to hear the percentages and then changes. I think we live in a community where certain types of crimes are anomalies, but when they occur, people think that things are really turning bad, and that's because we live in a community where it is so low. People don't expect to hear it. So it's nice to have you repeat that information so that the residents out there hear that data.
Speaking of which, can we share anything on that Citgo station on 83 a few days ago?
Citgo station.
Was
The
there a
carjacking.
Carjacking? Was that on our? Was that our side? Or was that?
Not our
That was
violation.
Willowbrook.
Is that
Willowbrook. So I have no information for you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that you don't.
True.
Is it possible, I know you said your report, but like, I think it'd be great, I know that stats have been shared on Direct Connect and other ways in the past, and I'm sure a patch article will probably be written about this at some point, but it'd be great to share that data with the citizens because, it's promising.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Dan, anything?
I have a PowerPoint presentation.
It's only 3 hours long.
Oh my goodness.
It's only 3 hours
I'm gonna need a coffee then.
Can I just ask you one quick question? If you got, we're painting fire hydrants, yes?
Correct.
And I'm assuming that white is just a primer?
That is correct. Again,
Direct Connect.
yeah.
Really? Okay.
yeah, we've had several telephone calls. So just for the general public, we are painting half the town.
Right.
Half the town's fire hydrants. They're currently white. The white is the primer. Red is going back on them.
I didn't see the Direct Connect, but somebody's thinking it, so that's why I asked, okay?
I know.
Appreciate that heads up, Joe. I mean, yeah, because you're exactly right.
Sometimes you could put all the information out there and it just doesn't matter.
It really, yeah. No comment.
Nikos.
Treasurer Corn, can you give us your report?
Please don't.
I sure can, Mr. Mayor. Now that we've totally discouraged you from public service. My apologies.
Oh my goodness.
Tonight, I'm asking council approval of warrant number 212205 in the amount of $166,087.36 from the listed funds, payroll for the period ended July 1st, the amount of $274,438.91, for a total to be approved of $440,526.27.
Can I have a motion and a second to approve the treasurer's report? Moved by Alderwoman Sullivan, seconded by Alderman Kenny. Does anyone from the audience have any questions?
No, not yet. Nope. In the roll.
And the roll?
Sullivan,
Aye.
Kenny,
Aye.
Shower,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
Belzak,
Aye.
Clistic,
Aye.
6 ayes and 1 absent.
Guys get a twofer tonight. I'm requesting council's approval of 21-2206, the amount of $590,433.82 from the listed funds and payroll for the period ended July 15th in the amount of $286,245.03 for a total to be approved of $876,678.85.
Motion to approve. Alderman Belzak. Second to approve, Alderman Vaughn. And the roll.
Belzak.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
6 ayes and 1 absent.
Thank you.
Good night.
Standing committee reports. So any of the aldermen have reports for the council? Alderman Belzak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Municipal Services has a meeting scheduled for a week from today on Monday, the 26th at 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Thank you. Alderman Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The police committee was supposed to meet this evening. It was canceled due to lack of agenda items. Our next scheduled meeting will be on Monday, August 16th at 6 p.m. across the street in the police training room.
Thank you. Alderwoman Sullivan?
Thank you. The next Administrative Finance Committee meeting will be on Monday, August 2nd at 6 p.m. in the upstairs conference room in the City Hall. And then the next Economic Development Committee is Thursday, August 5th at 7 p.m. in council chambers.
Does anyone from the audience have any questions or comments regarding any of the items on our agenda? Since there's no old business, we will move on to our consent agenda.
Item A under the consent agenda, consideration of a motion to approve the Darien Chamber of Commerce annual Darien Dash, a 10K run, a 5K run, a 1-mile walk on September 12, 2021, beginning at 8 a.m., and authorize the Chief of Police to finalize the details of this event with the Chamber of Commerce. Item B, consideration of motion to approve the use of the right half of the following streets for the Darien Dash, and then you have a long list of the streets that will be closed. Item C, consideration of a motion to grant a waiver of the raffle license bond requirement for the Darien Chamber of Commerce. And item D, consideration of a motion granting a waiver of the $50 a day fee for the Class J temporary liquor license for the Darien Lions Club. Motion to approve. Alderman Belzak, second by Alderman Vaughn, and the roll.
Belzak.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Clistic.
Aye.
Kenny.
Aye.
Shower.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
6 ayes and 1 absent.
Since we have no new business, we will move to questions and comments. Do any of the elder persons have anything to share with the council?
Alderwoman Sullivan?
I just want to say you did a fine job, young man, and you have been so patient for an extra long meeting, and our future is bright with young people like you. So thank you for leading us tonight.
Thank you.
Does anyone from the audience have anything to share with the council?
Just your mom.
Can I have a motion to adjourn? Alderperson Kenny, seconded by
Alderman Shower.
Alderperson
Shower.
Shower. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nice job, buddy. Nice job.
Good job.
Good job.
Amen.
Yay, great
Dan.
job.